Yes! Whew! It's Friday night, and I'm living every guy's fantasy, a threesome with two other guys. I know it's Keith's biggest fantasy. I know it's Keith's biggest fantasy. Welcome. Preseason football is here. The NFL season is less than 1 month away. I'm wearing my Chiefs gear. I'm excited. Chiefs play tomorrow. Patriots played last night. But before I dive into everything, there's so much I want to get into. Let me introduce my esteemed guest. I'm going to start off with Keys, the K in the Back Talk Brothers. Keys, what's up, brother?
Hey, Dan, doing good. We had a cold front, so it's been in the 70s here, brother.
It is literally 175 degrees outside in Vegas. So you suck. I'm just going to be honest with you. You suck. It sounds like you're saying it's negative 4 million right now. So, wow. Okay. All right. All right. Very weird. Keaton. We have Keaton from Keaton Talk Sports. He's joining us today. Keaton, what is up, man?
Man, it's finally football season, man. No more long waits. No more long waits. I'm excited to get things rolling.
You know, I only saw the highlights. I didn't get a chance to watch New England and New York, but I don't know if you saw the clip. I think I sent it to you. Colin Cowherd was saying that, according to a source, the best quarterback in Patriots camp is Joe Milton. And he looked good. I was a little surprised. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not that high on Joe Milton because I watched him at Michigan, and I said this is an NFL tight end, and I'm drawing a blank on the player's name. With the Washington Commanders, he was a Virginia Tech quarterback, switched to tight end, and I'm drawing a complete blank on his name. I'm 3 minutes into a show, and I already forgot the guy's name. Really good tight end. Mm-hmm. That's what I see Joe Milton becoming as an NFL tight end.
Wow.
Watch some of those clips, and let's just start here, man. Is Milton a legitimate quarterback candidate? Is this a guy that can make the team as a quarterback?
I mean, I think he's going to move up. I mean, if he continues to do what he does throughout the rest of the preseason, he can definitely yeah, like I said yesterday in my video, I think he can move up the depth chart for sure. He's definitely fighting with Bailey Zappi for that third and final spot right now. So it's going to be a tight race, but I think, if he continues to ball out, I think he will. And honestly, I think he will be that third quarterback on the roster coming before the season starts.
Really?
I think he will.
Oh, God. Logan Thomas.
Because I was watching the game last night, and just the way he was moving the ball down the field, something the Patriots haven't really been able to do last year. So it felt good to get the ball moving. It felt good to get in the end zone finally. So, I mean, he brings hope, but we'll see. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be the starter, but I think he definitely will make the team. But we'll see. There's still like 2 preseason games to go, so we'll have to see what happens.
It's Logan Thomas. That was the player who I was
Logan Thomas, yeah.
Yeah. He played quarterback at Virginia Tech. I liked him. I'll be honest with you, just as a quarterback, I like Logan Thomas better than I like Joe Milton. But Logan Thomas, matter of fact, Logan Thomas has been a very solid starter at tight end. So when I say that I see Joe Milton as a tight end, it's not a slight. I think he can play in the NFL. I'm not convinced he can be a quarterback. But I do want to switch gears a little bit here, because one thing that Chiefs fans and Patriots have in common is something that happened today. Juju Smith-Schuster was cut, and he's on the free agent market. I'm going to start off with Keys here. Keys, number one, were you surprised about this? And number two, would you want him back in Kansas City?
Okay, so, a couple of things to that first point. One, I'd heard the rumors it was going to happen. But two, with that, Brett Veach got some flack from Chiefs fans last year when the receiving core was bad because people missed Juju. But the reality was the Chiefs let him walk because of how bad his knee was. So, I think even looking back from a year ago, even saying this now with a little hindsight bias, I don't think it's surprised to see, Juju gone. I mean, I think the Patriots, I'm not even sure they ever really intended to have him, as like as a 2-year wide receiver. You know, a lot of these types of guys, these kind of Juju signings, it's a, you know, if you overwhelm us, you know, then you're worth the money and you can stay on the team. Otherwise, you know, it always kind of seemed more like a stopgap. So I'm not surprised there on either short term or long term, you know, recently or from like a year from now, you know, ago, about this. Would I like him back? You know, that's going to depend on what Juju wants. I think it would have to be as a practice squad wide receiver, with the way the team is right now, unless Roger Goodell, Roger Goodell's like he likes to do against the Chiefs. And, you know, I guess Keaton could say, you know, in the past against the Patriots, but he likes to just, you know, surprise and put in Chiefs suspensions at like the most inopportune times for the Chiefs. So if they somehow caught wind of that, you know, of a Rashee Rice suspension, then, you know, that's something different. But otherwise, you know, practice squad only for me right now. And that's mostly because I don't think the health is getting any better.
Before I get on to, I'm going to ask the same question for Keaton. I want to check out some of these comments here. Mrs. Key says, let's get this threesome going here. We're not even 10 minutes into the show, and we're already getting dirty here. Corey coming in. By the way, Corey, thank you so much. It drove me nuts. I was 3 minutes into the show, and I already forgot Logan Thomas. Really, I thought a better quarterback than Milton, because I watched Milton get benched at Michigan. I watch him replace Hendon Hooker and watch the Tennessee scoring offense, drop almost in half. This offense, we'll have to ask Gooch, but I think Tennessee scored something like 50 against Alabama. And then next thing I know, you got Joe Milton at quarterback, and they're struggling to put up 21 against South Carolina. So that's kind of my thought process. One Pride, welcome, One Pride. I got Slasher here. He's saying, what's going on, Slasher, man? I'm kind of curious what's going on with Philly in Baltimore. There's a lot of things on both sides. I'm actually looking forward to watching in that game. One Pride 40 says, don't expect the Lions to pick him up. And no, you're not surprised either. I guess I'm the only person that was surprised here, but we're going to ask Keaton, as the resident Patriots fan, as somebody who's very excited about the season, as somebody who says Joe Milton will be the starting quarterback day one.
You know, who knows?
You don't know.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I was surprised about this. One Pride's not. Keys isn't. The guy who I was expecting to be a big part of your offense is now on the streets. What are your thoughts here?
I mean, to be honest, like, I'm not really surprised that he got cut. I mean, like I said before, like, I think the Patriots, their one mistake that we made was not bringing back Jacoby Myers, because he was, if you look at Jacoby Myers, type of year he had, I think it was Mac Jones' second year when he took a step back, but Myers was one of our best receivers on the team. He clearly fit into what we wanted to do. And then Bill Belichick decides to bring Juju in to like a 3-year deal and let, you know, Myers go to the Raiders, which I was pretty pissed off by that. I'm not gonna lie, because I never thought Juju fit in with the system and all that. And last year he probably had one of his worst seasons probably in his career, stat wise. He wasn't, he was missing a lot of catches, and that really cost us games and stuff like that. So, I mean, just looking at our receiving core with, Polk, with Javon Baker, all the young guys, I just knew, like, looking at that, Juju, the type of veteran that he is, he didn't really fit into what we wanted to do. Obviously, he was, at best, probably the 4th or 5th best receiver on his team, if you look at it. So, I mean, I'm not surprised that we let him walk, to be honest. So, I mean, I think he'll be picked up by someone, I don't know who, but he just clearly didn't fit into what we wanted to do, going forward and stuff.
No, I guess I'm the only one who's kind of surprised about this, because I really liked him when he was in Kansas City, but I mean, he missed several games. I had the B from the Back Talk Brothers come in and told us that he had a 65-year-old knee and a 25-year-old body, and that was the only reason why the Chiefs didn't want him back. But when he was playing, he was a really good player. I really liked him. I mean, he's kind of a bigger guy. He can run after the catch, not a burner, but I was kind of surprised. So I guess I'm the only one who was surprised at this news because it happened today. And I look, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm looking at the Patriots. I'm like, man, this is a team that needs weapons. Why let go of a starting caliber wide receiver? But that's just me. Speaking of starting caliber wide receivers, the Brandon Ayuk story, it changes every day. Every day there's something different. There's something going on. Today it looks like he doesn't want to go to New England. I want to bring up the latest rumor I heard and see if you guys heard the same thing. The rumor was that Pittsburgh wants him, which is not a big story, but the only way they'll take him is if the only way the 49ers will trade him to Pittsburgh is if they get George Pickens back in return. So it's a Pickens for Ayuk trade, and then you have to trade some trade capital or some things like that. I don't know if you guys heard this, but I read this and I was kind of blown away. By the way, I send out a kind of group text. I didn't even text you guys this, so I'm just kind of blindsiding you by this crazy rumor I heard. I'm going to start with Keys. Number one, did you hear this rumor? Would you make it? What do you think is going to happen to Brandon Ayuk?
Man, hey, first off, I am a huge fan of what's his name, Little Ricky or whatever that guy is on Twitter, doing the Lord's work out there, breaking all these news stories in advance. And Ricky says Ayuk is going to the Steelers. He is tripled down, quadrupled down. This guy's been right about a lot of things. So, part of me is just a little hesitant to not trust this, complete Twitter stranger, who's been adamant about this. But man, would I hate that. So I do hope he's wrong. It's weird because the latest rumors now are that, the 49ers are just wanting to come together on a contract and make it work. I don't think any of us believe that. That's kind of like when you go by the trade negotiation playbook, that's kind of like the last ditch effort to extract more, trade capital before you take a loss, So I do have a feeling something is going to happen, and it's probably not going to be as much as the 49ers are wanting. I don't think there's any way that Ayuk is coming back. So it's just a matter of what team. Ricky's probably right.
You probably think it's Pittsburgh. Do you think it's even possible that Pittsburgh would trade Pickens for Ayuk, even if they got picks in return?
I don't know that they would. I would. I'm one of those people who took Pickens off my board because of his character. But that's kind of a Pittsburgh thing, is to take guys with a lot of talent and low moral character. So, I mean, that's just been the thing during the Mike Tomlin era. And he has the personality that he's done, probably even, it's like an iceberg thing. We just see above the surface of what Mike Tomlin has done, as far as managing characters. Like, I think his ability to manage characters might be, maybe third to Andy Reid and Bill Belichick. And you could even possibly, debate that, because he's had some of the biggest egos, out there and managed to handle them. But I don't think you can trade Pickens if you're the Steelers. I mean, I guess if you really wanted to keep that, the trade capital, and we don't see all the stuff that Pickens does. If he's turning into a locker room cancer, then I think that makes it a no-brainer for them. But 49ers would do their homework. So
yeah, there was a rumor that him and Deontay Thompson, I think I got the name right, who's now in Carolina, had
Johnson.
issue. Yeah, Jonathan.
Yeah.
I said Thompson, didn't I? But I got the name wrong. But you guys know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know you're talking.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was rumors that those two butted heads, and the Steelers were like, "We like Pickens. We were going to get rid of this guy." And they got a corner, which I thought was a pretty good move. I really like the trade. Actually, I like to trade for both teams. Hindsight, but Keaton, man, I'm going to throw a lot at you here. You know, number one, where is Ayuk going? Apparently, he said no to New England, which I personally think that's kind of the best place he could go, my opinion, if he doesn't want to go to Pittsburgh. I mean, both those spots makes a lot of sense, to be honest. I think he's a better fit in New England, to tell you the truth. But you know, did you hear about the Pickens for Ayuk trade and or you know, hey, what do you think?
I did hear about the rumors of the Ayuk and was it Pickens trade a little bit earlier today, but in terms of like where I think Ayuk could go, like I'm looking at from a cap space perspective, like New England has the most cap space currently in the NFL, but it's just a matter of like as great as Ayuk is, I think he is a phenomenal wide receiver. Like, how is he going to fit in with the young core of New England? Because we do have one of the youngest rosters probably in the league with the draft picks and all that stuff, new quarterback, new coach, all that stuff. So it's like, is he going to be a disruption to the locker room in New England if he does come here? And I don't know if that's something I want in the locker room for the young players, because I think Jalen Polk and I think Javon Baker can be something. It can be something in this league if they are developed the correct way. I think we do have the right front office people to help them develop in the right direction. But like I said, Brandon Ayuk is something we haven't really had since really Randy Moss in terms of like the number one receiver. So like it would be nice to have someone like Ayuk that can make the job easier for like Drake May or whoever is the starting quarterback come week one. But in all reality, I think Pittsburgh is the right destination for him. I'm just looking at the personnel that they have on offense, phenomenal defense. I think Mike Tomlin can, help Ayuk, because people call him like a diva or whatever they want to call him in terms of all his antics off the field with, the way he's handling the situation. But I think Pittsburgh is the right fit for him if he were to leave. Oh, I mean, obviously he's probably going to leave San Francisco, but that would be one of my destinations I think he would go to, because I can't really think of any other destinations currently.
I saw some things about Baltimore, but I think from a scheme standpoint, it would make a lot of sense. I think it's just a matter of time, personally, that he's a Steeler, but I don't see the Steelers getting rid of Pickens for him. It's going to be interesting, but it's if I was Ayuk though, I would want to go to New England. And the reason why is I think you'd get the most money. Boston's an expensive place to live. I heard that was kind of a thing that may have soured Ayuk and other free agents, is that the cost of living. But for some reason, it's not a problem in LA or New York. So
yeah,
I don't get that. I've heard that from several people, but I haven't got that here. I'm going to read some comments here. Perry, welcome, brother. He's asking how we're all doing tonight.
Doing great, man.
I know I'm excited about tomorrow. Keaton's excited about tomorrow. He wants to see Patrick Mahomes. Patriots about ready to nuke that roster. Early on, One Pride, and Keaton's going to talk about this because he watched the Carolina Patriots game, but Jacoby Brissett's going to be the starter, and there's legitimate concern that I'll let Keaton kind of bristle about that, but Joe Milton's getting a lot of hype, and there is a good reason for that. Keaton's going to go into detail to tell us all why Joe Milton's going to be a starter day one. I'm joking. Key says Juju was brought in to be a player coach. I really thought he was coming in to be a legitimate receiver. I guess you guys saw it. I didn't. I was surprised that he was cut, and find out.
I wonder if Pittsburgh will pick him back up.
That would be a good move if they can't get Ayuk, but we'll find out. And how bad is that knee? I mean, that's really another issue.
Yeah.
Perry says at One Pride, we think a last night game looked really bad for us. I'll talk about that here in a bit. Perry, it's one preseason game. Yeah. Brandon wants to get paid. He needs to go where he get paid. That's New England. He'd get a lot of money in New England. Look at this. We have the B and the Backtalk brothers, the talent, the great one, Gooch. And he says there's a lot of talent here, but it's best if we add the talent. It is. And yeah, I'm the only one who was surprised. He was surprised to get. Oh, God. My mom watches this, Keys. The 49ers are getting weaker. I completely agree with that.
I don't think about the NFC next year. That's just no.
I'm it's funny. I work with some 49ers fans, and they're really excited about the season. And I'm kind of just chuckling because I'm like, I mean, where else can you go? I mean, the only way you could be better is if you win the Super Bowl. I don't see that. This is a great point, and this is kind of where I wanted to get to next. One Pride 40 hates the new kickoff rule. It looks terrible. I'm going to start off with Keaton because he watched the Panthers Giants game in full last night. I've only seen highlights, but Keaton, the new kickoff rule, One Pride 40 hates it. I want to get your thoughts on it.
I mean, it's definitely interesting. I mean, I was watching the game, the start of the game, and I saw like them lined up in their formation. It was weird at first because I see them just running down the field, trying to get the returner, but it's weird. I'm not gonna lie, but it's definitely it's weird and exciting at the same time because it's definitely it's a new rule. But yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. I want to see what it's like, obviously during the season and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't really have much to say. I think it's interesting, but it's also kind of weird at the same time. That's my that's my reaction on that. I'll have to probably watch more of it as the season gets.
I mean, we've only seen. I mean, we're kind of seeing it all for the first time, just like the NFL is, and just like all the fans are. Keys, man, I want to get your thoughts. Me and you were both watching Pittsburgh, Houston right before the show, so you got to see some of the new kickoffs, and I want to know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, my understanding is it's the same that the XFL rolled out last year, correct? So
yes.
So I've seen quite a bit of it, at least on the XFL level. And maybe it was because it was different, and the XFL is different. I actually enjoyed it with the XFL. I think I'm going to be kind of mixed, with the NFL because, I kind of fight between kind of my traditionalist side and, all of that. But I think the one thing, well, there's probably a couple things I don't like. And I think one of them is it essentially, if I recall correctly, it essentially eliminates squib kicks. Does it not?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure it does. And I hate that. I absolutely, 100% hate that. And of course, I say that as someone who benefited off of Sean McDermott being stupid and not squibbing it to the Chiefs when they lost the AFC Championship game, the 13-second game, and that would completely eliminate that. And that's kind of if you hate the Chiefs, then you should probably hate this new kickoff rule, right? Because McDermott was a complete bonehead on that play. They should have squibbed it. And that doesn't mean it would have changed history. The Chiefs kicked their field goal with 4 seconds left, and if you squib it, it maybe takes 4 seconds or it takes 2 or 3. You don't know. But, at the very least, I don't like not having the squib, as a strategic technical tool if you want it as a special teams coordinator or a head coach. On the other side, I'm interested on seeing what special teams coordinators do with this rule and how they try to learn from it and exploit it. And I know, one of your questions, you have some questions about preseason games. And this is one I'm going to be looking at, especially, with Dave Tobe, who's one of the best special teams coordinators in the game, and watching how he utilizes it, because all we've heard since they passed this rule was he was experimenting with like Justin Reed kicking, who was their emergency kicker, because then you have 11 defenders to defend against a kick return, versus, you really don't want to count or even count on your kicker, making that tackle, even though, he does it. I guess in a way you could argue, the kicker was always the last line of defense, and back before the change, everybody had a running start. So, the kicker was taking on someone, theoretically with more steam behind them. So, maybe it's not that big of a deal. So, those are the kinds of things I'm interested in, to see exactly, how special teams coordinators, put their kickoff team out there, how they formulate those guys, because there's going to be guys that, were out there before who aren't going to be out there now. Kick return, you're going to have more offensive lineman types out there to block, more tight ends and offensive linemen. Like, what's the strategy, and seeing, what special teams coordinators kind of play around with that in preseason.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. The Chiefs signed it's Lewis. He's got a hyphenated name. One of the rugby players, I want to say, from Australia. And the Chiefs are, utilizing the international rule. A lot of other teams have picked up rugby players as well, because they're trying to adapt to the new rule. That was something I know the Chiefs are doing. I don't know. I haven't heard so much about other teams trying a different kickoff player, but I heard something about the XFL. It was something like 20 to 25% of the tackles were made by the kicker. And that's something, you don't want to. Obviously, the kicker that's a big thing for injuries, everything like that. I want to say I like it. I really do. I didn't think I would, but I do like it. And the one thing I think I liked is that the NFL has been trying to be a higher scoring league, because more points, more ratings, at least that's what people think. It doesn't look like it's going to be that way. I see a lot of teams starting off between the 25 and the 15. I've seen a lot of teams get the kick and it's inside the 20. I haven't seen a touchdown yet, which a lot of executives thought that this rule would bring more touchdowns. So I like it, because I'm an old school guy, and even though it's a new thing, it looks like teams are going to have to drive further. It looks like it's going to benefit the defense, and I think it will be more lower scoring games, which I think is fun. Perry says, I think it's time to rip. I think you mean rip up the kickoff and punt returns, just put the ball in. There's a lot of people that feel that way, Perry, and a lot of people thought that this is kind of the natural transition where they're just going to eliminate punts and kicks, and instead of doing that, they're trying this rule. I'll be honest, I really like this new rule. I like it. I'm enjoying it. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I think I'm in the minority here.
I don't think so. I think if you have a crappy special teams coordinator or, crappy like specialist, then you hate special teams, right? Yeah. But I mean, if you want to get rid of the kickoff and the punt, then why are you not advocating for just getting rid of field goals too? You know what I mean? Like,
there's a lot of people that feel that way.
All three phases are part of the games. The people who feel that way generally are people who have crappy special teams coordinators or crappy specialists, right? And I think that's something we all have in common, right? Keaton, the Patriots had Gostkowski and Vinatieri, the Chiefs have Harrison Butker, the Ravens have Justin Tucker. Like, if you have great special teams, you appreciate it a lot more than if you have crappy special teams, and then you hate it because it costs your team games.
I want to jump in and kind of go in a different direction. Harrison Butker just signed a massive extension, making him the highest paid kicker in the NFL. For some weird reason, he was not fired from the NFL despite multiple groups wanting him to be fired for his fantastic speech. All right, let's just drop it off right there. It was, but Slasher jumps in. Quentin Mitchell almost had to pick on the very first play, but he dropped it. Slasher, so what I heard was that they're gonna have the John Keys, help me out here. I know it's DeGene.
Oh, Cooper DeGene.
Cooper DeGene. Okay. So I heard that Cooper DeGene was going to play in the slot. Mitchell's on the outside, but early on, I'm seeing that they're having Mitchell in the slots. Who's on the outside? Rakestraw is a dog. I'm going to read through some of these comments here, and then I want to get back here. Gooch, how are you, man? Time to bring it. I would love to have Gooch come on, but I know he's busy partying.
Currently, it's Houston's up 17-0 at halftime. Just giving.
We were watching. Me and Keys were watching. I got to the second quarter. I saw Justin Fields, the entirety of Justin Fields, and I'm just going to link it right now. I'm just going to say it right now. That's a starting quarterback. Justin Fields is going to be the starting quarterback. I know it sounds crazy because if you watched it like I did, he fumbled twice. They replaced the center. There's a center quarterback exchange. So they put in the rookie Zach Frazier. And another thing Pittsburgh's been doing, which is kind of unusual but interesting, they're rotating their offensive line around everywhere. Broderick Jones, he was their first-round pick last year. He was starting off at left tackle, or I'm sorry, his right tackle the very first play. Danielle Hunter beat him badly. Now they moved him over to left tackle. They have Troy Fatanu. They're starting him at right tackle. They're kind of mix matching the offensive line. So this shows me that you have offensive line problems. But that very first play that he got beat, Justin Fields just ran right around Danielle Hunter. Danielle Hunter, by the way, had 17.5 sacks. He's one of the more athletic defensive ends. Eluding Danielle Hunter one-on-one, it sounds very minor. It sounds like I'm not saying anything big. It's a big deal. There's not a lot of quarterbacks that can do that. Justin Fields can do that. So you have a young offensive line that has some problems. Do you want the 36-year-old quarterback who's injured in preseason, or do you want, I think he's 24, the 24 super athletic quarterback?
Yeah.
He made some throws. I'm trying not to do the hot take thing, but after watching what I saw in this very small amount, and I only got through the first quarter, Justin Fields is going to be a starting quarterback. I think he's going to start day one. I really do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really thought it would come maybe later in the season, but with the time Russell Wilson's missing and the way that offensive line, they're trying to shuffle pieces around. Inexperienced offensive line, younger quarterback with some speed, a team that's reliant on the running game and defense. Justin Fields is going to end up being the starting quarterback. So kind of ruining it there of a crazy hot take, but I'm just telling you from what I saw, like that's going to be a starting quarterback week one. So but Raven 7-6 be more busy. I actually want to watch that game. Slasher, as the Eagles fan, he's saying Quentin Mitchell on the slot's interesting. So that's going to be something I'm kind of looking for.
I think they're going to have a really good year. The Eagles.
Ooh, Juju linked to Baltimore. We don't want him here in Baltimore kick. I'm actually surprised because I'll be honest with you, Brandon Ayuk was linked in Baltimore, and apparently Baltimore's not interested. Baltimore doesn't look to be trying to add anybody, but I think they could use a receiver.
I mean, they could use, I'm about to say they could, help Lamar out a little bit.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. He lost all that weight. He wants to play. I think he's at 205 or 210. And I'm just going to say, I think the weight loss thing, I don't care if you feel better or not. I think it's a bad move. But
same with Tua.
Perry says that Dan and Keys, when is the first Kansas City game you'll be streaming? I will be only streaming the regular season games. I will be live when they play the Ravens in less than a month. When they play tomorrow, my work schedule is going to be a little different. Keys, I'll let Keys, do you have an idea of when you will be back on YouTube? Because I love your content and I want to see you back on.
Yeah, hey, listen, when Gooch gets back in the chat, if he does, you guys can ask him because I keep bugging him. We all got to get our schedules meshed out, but yeah, I'm trying to talk him into like taking this show to like a Saturday night or something.
I would love it. I would love it. Perry has this is a statement, but I'm going to phrase this as a question. If you're an NFL player, would you want to play in a market with a less media presence, somewhere like Kansas City, Green Bay? Would you call it Houston, Jacksonville, Tampa Bay? I don't know if Houston's considered a small media. I think it is, but I might be wrong about that. New Orleans.
Absolutely.
Would you rather play in a less media, or would you rather play in a big? So Keaton, you would want to play in a smaller market.
For sure. I mean, the thing is, like in a small market, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you have cameras on you, but like you don't have all the cameras and all the attention on you. Like the Jets, for example, is like there's so many. That's the reason why I don't think the Jets are gonna like really. I think they're really there's too overhyped in my opinion. Like I think something's gonna happen where, you know, they have they get better this offseason. I'm not questioning what the Jets did. Like I think they had a good offseason, then draft and free agency, all that. But like I think they have too many guys on that team that think that they're the guy in terms of, you know, in terms of them making plays. Like I'm the guy, I'm the number one receiver, I'm the guy, I'm the best one on offense. Like there's always something with the Jets. And, you know, the media, if you're not performing, let's say if the Jets get off to a slow start, then the media is going to make that a big deal. And that becomes a distraction. You never know what Aaron Rodgers, what he's going through in his head. Is he fully committed or locked in throughout the season? I mean, you don't know. So, like, I prefer to play in the smaller market just because, you know, you don't have all that distraction. Yeah, you could still talk to the media and all that, but you don't have all the attention on you in terms of, like, you know, a place like the New York or LA and all that stuff. So, I just know I would prefer just to play ball and not having to be, you know, talking to the media 24/7 like, you know, like the Jets do and all that. So
Keaton said he would hate to be a New England Patriot. Yeah, Keith, let me ask you this here, because there are bonuses to being in a big market. If you were an NFL player, which one would you prefer?
Yeah, you know, I think both suck. And you know, I understand where Keaton's coming from. But you know, the Kansas City market, for example, is extremely toxic. The Kansas City Star is absolutely toxic. It does not support its home team. You know, and so just, you know, going off of that experience and, you know, thinking of some other teams, like, for example, the most toxic player or the most toxic reporter at the most toxic place for Kansas City has now moved on to Pittsburgh after she lost her job for, you know, basically making stuff up. And so, you know, that's another small market, but you still have that toxic, cancerous employee now in another small market. So, you know, I think there's, for some markets anyway, maybe it's not every small market, but, you know, you're a smaller market, but you're still one of 32 NFL teams. And so, like, if you're in a smaller market, it's a lot harder to hide. You know, if you're the Jets, you can hide behind the Giants, the Yankees, the Mets, the Rangers, you know, all these teams, all the politics going on. And so I think it's easier to hide in like LA, New York, Chicago, you know, all Dallas, all these bigger markets. But, you know, there's still there's still huge pressure, you know, on like the Cowboys or the Patriot, you know, all these teams. So I don't think there's a market that is good between. I think all of them are essentially as toxic, you know, just like in their own way, because you get this little man complex, you know, in these small market papers. They have more pressure to drum up controversy, to, you know, to create their headlines than, you know, bigger market newspapers and media do. So, you know, to me, I don't want to say either one, because I can understand where, you know, if you're like the Lakers or the Cowboys or the Yankees or whatever, you still have all this tremendous pressure. because your team owner, has the media out there talking about how good your team's going to be so he can get his ticket money. And that puts the pressure on you. But the smaller markets, you still have that little man complex, and, you still have all these poisonous, little newspapers and stuff that are owned by a huge, one that knows how to get their headlines. So to me, there isn't a good market in that way. Big, small, whatever, they all suck.
I want to, because not everybody knows the story behind what Keys is talking about, so I want to give it a little context. There was a reporter for the Kansas City Star who falsely basically made up a story about Tyreek Hill. And it was a big deal. It was part of the reason why the Chiefs traded up in the second round to draft Miracle Hardman. And it did result originally in Tyreek Hill getting suspended. It was just a fabricated story. She was a reporter just trying to make a name for herself. She ended up being fired by the Kansas City Star, and she's now in Pittsburgh. She was the one who pissed Tomlin off. Do you remember that, Keys? Because that was when I found out she was there, because she was the one who's like, what about your retirement? And then Tomlin just walked off the stage. It was that same reporter. As far as the comments with, do you want to be in a big market or a small market? There's a huge advantage. Like if you're Eli Manning, for example, he got suits, shoes, free meals at the finest New York restaurants. He can go into New York. I don't think he lives there anymore. I don't know. He can eat for free at one of these restaurants that's like $2,000 a meal or whatever. And that's kind of cool. But yeah, it's very interesting. Funk says, you can do a version of the squib. It just has to touch down in the safe zone, or I don't know how you would do that, because a squib kick doesn't normally go in a straight line.
Yeah, it's got to get to like the safe zone's like what, the 20-yard line to the goal line. And what happens if they pick it up before?
I actually don't know that. That's a great question. If there is a false start, it's a 5-yard penalty, and if it's a false start on the receiving team, the kicking team can elect to decline it. So that, but it is something a little weird. Yeah, it's Louis Reed's gambit. I'm excited to see him in preseason. I'm excited to see him in preseason. I can see teams that struggle in the kick inside of the kickoff, literally kicking it into the end zone. You don't want to do that because you get the ball. I think it's the 40, and I should have all these rules down.
I think it's 30.
Is it the 30? It's 35 or 40. There's a penalty for doing that. So
I think it's 40-yard line.
If you kick it through the end zone, no, it's not. Not through the end zone.
Get 30-yard line. That's all. I think. Yeah. Like if you kick it through the end zone, you get at the 30-yard line.
I'm looking at, from a safety standpoint, having more roster spots for more offensive and defensive players. That's another thing that I kind of don't want to go on a rant here, but a small rant. But that's one of the reasons why scoring has been so down last season, is because the NFL's increased their rosters. And what teams did is they said, hey, look, we're just going to add a ton of defensive linemen. They don't need to know the whole playbook. And on third down, we're just going to get after the quarterback. And you take a guy who's fully rested against an offensive lineman. It may not sound like much, but moving full speed for 5 to 20 yards when you're 320 pounds, doing a full sprint 20 straight times, about 20 yards, that takes a lot out of you. Now you got a guy who's 240, 250 pounds, who's fresh, coming right off the edge. He's going to have an advantage, and that's kind of the reason why you have a lower scoring in the leagues, because defenses have been ramping up with extra roster spots. They include a lot of defensive linemen, linebackers, quote unquote edge players. From a safety standpoint, if the NFL really cared about safety, it would be all grass. They'd make a bunch of adjustments. I kind of don't want to rant here.
All right, Dan, to answer your question, I wasn't trying to interrupt here. So if the kick hits the end zone and it stays in bounds, it doesn't go out of the back or the sides, then it's a touchback to the 30. Or if it goes out of the back of the end zone, it's a touchback to the 30. If it's short of that line, the 20-yard line, then it's spotted at the 40. It's treated like an out of bounds.
Oh, I need to
So-
learn the rules myself, but that's
yeah.
actually not a bad idea. If you're a team and you really struggled, you just kick out the end zone and say, you know what, let's give it to you on 30.
That's why special
That'll
teams.
work for time.
Special teams is going to be important.
That's why, yeah. You know, if you got a
Like-
kicker like Butker who can put the hang time on there and drop it at the 5,
Mhm.
like, good luck, have fun.
Listen, special teams is going to be a big deal. There's a reason why Matthew Slater's been playing in the NFL. He retired this year, if I'm correct, but I mean, he played in the NFL too. Is like 40, just special teams guy.
So here's the fun thing, okay? Because if it hits in the landing zone, so between the 0 and the 20, and then it goes into the end zone, they either have to return it, or if they down it, they only get the ball at the 20. So you lose 10 yards if the ball hits in the landing zone and then goes in the end zone. So that's a huge advantage if you have a kicker who definitely gets it, you know, in that 20-yard landing zone.
Listen, special teams is going to be important, and I think that not only is it going to be important, I think the new rules it's going to make for lower scoring games. And for me, I like that. I think the NFL should quit doing this. We're making the rules benefit the offense. Listen, a 17-14 game can be a lot of fun to watch.
I agree.
It can be a lot of fun to watch. I enjoy those. Listen, that 3-0 game between the Raiders and the Vikings, nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see that. But like a 17-10 game, a 14-10 game with two really good defenses, that's a lot of fun. Yeah. That's a lot of fun to watch.
If you're going to do anything else, that's for sure.
Yeah. Barry says, I think the Bears will regret moving on from Feeds. I 100% agree with that. By the way, I'm going to actually put some action on that. I have been lucky enough that this year I am joining up with BetUS as an affiliate. There's a link below. I have it listed in the description as free money because you get 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits. They have a bet right now on yards for Caleb Williams. Get that name out there. It's last I looked, it was 3,500. That number hopefully will go up after a good preseason game. I'm going to bet on this, and I'll make a video with my bet. But check out BetUS for a lot of different bets this year. But Perry, I'm going to bet on that. I think Caleb Williams not going to hit 3,500 yards. I think it's going to be a disaster. I haven't watched the Hard Knocks episode, but I am signed up for Max, so I can check that out. But over the next several days, the AFC East prediction video hopefully will come out Monday. I have a lot of preseason to watch. And then, of course, I'm watching every second of the Chiefs-Jaguars game. And hopefully I don't have to sign up for the NFL Sunday ticket to do that. But we'll find out because I'm here in Vegas. But we'll find out. But, yeah, I agree completely. Nate Wiggins is going to be a shutdown corner. We'll find out. JJ sneak this Lamar. Oh, yes. I forgot about that. Juju Smith-Schuster. I forgot about that. But, yeah. And by the way, we were wanting to talk about this quite a bit because I only got to see the highlights. So Perry is asking Keaton, what are your takeaway from the Pats preseason so far, other than that Joe Milton's the best quarterback since Tom Brady?
Yeah, watching that game yesterday, like I said, I remember, I watched the whole thing. It was raining at the start of the game. And like I said, our passing game was kind of sluggish at the start. So we really didn't get going really until like the second half, really. Defense played phenomenal as usual. Like I said, I think we're going to be a top 5 defense in all football. And I think Judon will get his bag before week 1, I think. Because I don't think Brent Ayuk's going to come here. I mean, as much as I want him in New England, I think he's going to be a Steeler come before the season starts. That's just my opinion. But like I said, the defense played phenomenal throughout the entire game, holding the Panthers. I know they didn't have any stars, but holding them to 3 points about some of our stars on that side of the ball. Yeah, man, Drake May, I say he's going to, he has a long way to go as well. I mean, he had some flashes, but as a rookie, just like any other rookie, he's going to have to – I think he's going to sit a year, in my opinion, and learn. I think, like I said, Jacoby Brissett will be the starting quarterback come the season. Whether how well he's playing, I think he's going to be the star. I think Drake May is going to either sit the whole year, or he might play towards the end of the year. Depends on how the season is going for us up to that point. But I think it's smart to just let him sit a year and just let him learn the playbook. And I think next year, once we continue to add more pieces on the offense, at receiver and at the O-line, I think Drake May, this job will be his. And you never know what Joe Milton can do. Maybe if he continues to ball out like he has been, then you just never know. But defense played phenomenal. The offense had some flashes, but I would like to see more consistency on that side of the ball for sure.
All right, so Keaton says the Patriots defense will be the best you've ever seen since the '85 Bears. But you know what though? I think that what they're doing is really smart, and I'm not comparing the two, but what the Chiefs did is they drafted Patrick Mahomes, a raw dude with a lot of talent, and they sat him for a year. You get Drake May, a talented dude who's a raw dude. I mean, there's lots of upside, but he's raw as hell. Let him sit for a year, and then Joe Milton's a 6th-round pick. If there's never been a 6th-round pick in the history of the world. There's never been a 6th-round quarterback pick ever be a good quarterback in the NFL. Never. By the way, hopefully you guys all caught that Tom Brady was a 6th-round pick from Michigan. Both quarterbacks played at Michigan, so. Keaton, I got to ask, man, is that vodka in that 98-gallon jug that you're drinking? Are you like, what? That thing is huge, man.
It's a big one. It's a bar.
Dude, I love it, man. You came prepared, man. Like 740 ounces of vodka is ready to go. And this one's for Keys. What are your thoughts on Kansas City's training camp, and what are you looking forward to for tomorrow with the Kansas City Chiefs?
Hey, this is a pretty simple answer. 1, players being healthy. 2, I think you want to see, I think if you focus on, the results part of each matchup, I think you kind of lose, you're losing your focus. You have to look at the technique of each player. Do they know their assignment? Do they understand their assignment? How good is their technique? And then over the course of time, from week to week, game to game, does it improve? And but other than that, like health is the big one. You're going to see players who are put in roles that they're probably not going to succeed on. But it's just to learn if they can, right? Like we saw a video, I'm sure you saw it, Dan, last week of like Xavier Worthy getting his butt jammed, a la L'Jarius Sneed and Tyreek Hill, and it's like, that's not going to happen all season, right? Andy Reid's learning what he's capable of and what he's not capable of, and helping him to learn what he's capable of and not capable of. But Andy Reid can, is one of the best out there who can, easily scheme out ways to stop you from jamming a player at the line of scrimmage. So you shouldn't be worried about, things like that. Those are where the micro adjustments come in. Preseason training camp, it's a learning environment. Right. I think we talked about this before. Patrick Mahomes' rookie season, he was testing what he could get away with, and people were freaking out because he was throwing 25 interceptions in training camp, and then preseason, but he was finding out what his windows were, what he could get away with. Jamar Chase, just to not just keep it, like Chiefs centric. Jamar Chase, his rookie season, was dropping everything thrown his way. And people were freaking out.
That was a huge story with the Bengals.
They were freaking out. Even in preseason games, he was dropping everything. Once they got to the regular season, was he dropping things? So it's like, just because you see bad individual player results, you have to look at the process and understand like what they're trying to get out of games and practices to really understand all this. So it's like, in my mind, if a player does good, that's probably good. If they do bad, it's still not necessarily bad. It's what is learned from, what is done? Is technique getting better? Is process getting tightened up? Because process is what leads to the results, right? If you have bad process, you get bad results. If you have good process, you might not get the good results at the beginning, but eventually you're going to get to the good results. So, in very generic terms, that's what I'm looking forward. Players making it out healthy. Like Hendon Hooker, you don't want to see players getting concussions. You don't want to lose players, for the whole season in these preseason games. And, like I said earlier, with special teams, that'll be interesting. See what those strategies are. That is something where, I would care more, right? Because preseason games don't tell us a whole lot, but that area might be something that'll be interesting to watch special teams coordinators, tinker with, who are their blockers, are they going to have that? Are they going to have that kicker out there? Or, we're going to see a Justin Reed or Luis Rees-Gamet or whatever. So, those are kind of the things, but I don't really care. If Mahomes goes 3 for 17, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me because it has nothing to do with the regular season. He's probably going to try something. Now, will he try behind the back pass in preseason? I think there's a chance.
I do want to see that. By the way, there is a clip of Patrick Mahomes in training camp. By the way, I wanted to look it up here because Patrick Mahomes in training camp up into the 2018 season was throwing a lot of interceptions, and he didn't have a good first year in the NFL. I'm going to bring up the stats here. Only 5,097 yards and 50 touchdowns and 1 MVP. So he struggled that first year in the NFL, despite, so bad preseason, rough first year, Super Bowl MVP, NFL MVP, all that. So I had to look up those numbers. By the way, Raven 76B more, man, I'm glad you enjoy it. I want to give you a heads up because I haven't had a chance to update this on my channel, but starting September 9th, I'm bringing up something I'm calling Afternoon Delight. I will be live Monday through Friday from 1 to 4 Vegas time. If you're on the East Coast, it'll be 4 to 7. 3 hours of football talk Monday through Friday. I'm calling it Afternoon Delight. So I'm switching it up, but it's starting September 9th. It'll be after the first week of the NFL season. So during the season, I'll be live in the afternoon, not at night. But I'm glad you're here, and I appreciate that big time. And J.K. Cruisin brings up the new kickoff rules are a trap, regardless how safer it is. I don't think I'm one of these mean people, I guess you can call it. I don't think it has anything to do with safety. I think it's just the NFL thought that this would go into a points explosion. I don't think it's going to. I think it's going to result in less points, but I like it. Perry has a great question here. Perry, and I'll have Keaton answer this one. Do the Patriots trade Matt Judon? And by the way, he would look great and better in Chiefs red, and we're more than willing to give up a 7th round draft pick for him.
He put the red sleeves through the red jersey. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. That just makes sense, Keaton. Put Judon in Kansas City, a 7th round draft pick, bump it up to conditional 6.
When a man bleeds, is his blood not red?
Yes. Let's get it done.
Biology.
Shoot on to Kansas City. Let's get it done, Keaton. Keaton's down for it.
All right, the Pats trade Matt Judon. I mean, like I said, I don't. It depends on what team he goes because I don't know what team. Like, I mean, I know you said the Chiefs look good.
Oh God, he was for him.
That would be crazy though. But like, I'm just talking about other teams. I don't know what other teams would be interested in Judon. I mean, I know a lot of teams probably would love to have his services, but I think he will be a Patriot come week 1. That's just me. I mean, I don't know what the money situation is, but I think he's just too important for our defense. I think if we let him walk, I think it's going to definitely weaken our defense to some degree because he brings a lot to the table with his pressures and just his experience in the game. So I think
also the Christian Barmore injury. If you guys didn't hear, Barmore has the blood clots in his leg. There's no timetable for that. I mean, ideally, with the way medical science is today, it's a fixable and treatable thing. It's also potentially career-ending thing. There's been weirder things happening, but with the Barmore injury, I think Judon making sure that he's there week one and an integral part of the defense is even greater, because I thought Barmore was a guy that going into the season could have a really big year. He's one of my draft crushes. He went to some SEC school. Gooch can tell me who he went, where he played at, but I don't remember.
Auburn, right?
Yeah, I think it was Auburn. It was probably Auburn. Raven 6. Yeah, I liked him in Baltimore, and
that's too.
I mean, that would make there's so many. He's such a versatile, multi-talented player that he can go anywhere. That's kind of why I would like him in Kansas City, but I don't see it. Fun brings up a great point. Just a reminder, I hate most of my fan base. All day I heard how awful Hooker is, and the Lions should trade for a backup. The concussion thing does bother me. Anytime a player gets a concussion, it bothers me. But I was kind of surprised more people weren't impressed with the play. I think the play that actually caused the concussion, where he ran over a defensive back, that was a fun play to watch. He broke 2 tackles and then ran over a defensive back for a first down. I think that was the place that he sustained the concussion on, but you can see the athleticism, you can see the talent, and by the way, man, I can relate. I can relate. Nate Sudfeld is trash, a waste of the reps. That should be. That's another thing. Drew Lock, who a lot of people were talking about in the chat, Perry he got injured in the game. He may not. He's going to be out for a couple weeks. That's an issue. Hendon Hooker, hopefully the concussion is minor, and he'll be able to get back to playing this preseason, because he's something I really, really, really want to see. Let me ask you this here. This is a great question here. What kind of return could the Pats get for Judon? Listen, a 7th rounder from Kansas City sounds fair.
That's a cheat code.
But what seriously? Let's say they can't get a deal done, which they have the money to do. But let's say he wants too much. What's a realistic trade value? And is there what team would be able to pay him?
Question. I don't know. I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know, to be honest. I mean, I would say. I mean, the Ravens probably would be. I mean, like I said, a good like a reunion. I mean, he knows that defense. I mean, they lost Patrick Queen, so like, why not bring someone like Judon back potentially? I mean, I can see that. I just can't think of any other teams he would go to. I would like who really needs an edge rusher. I don't know. It's a good question.
I think you're right. I think at the end of the day, a deal will get done. But yeah, and it's hard. It's hard to say though. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I think any NFL team could use them, but I mean, as far as a trade cap, I think I'll be honest with you. When everything's said and done, I do think that Judon will stay in New England. I mean, they got the cap space; they really need him. It's just a matter of time. As far as trade value, that's a tough one, because I mean, he's over 30. He missed most of last season. It's really hard to say. But Chase Young the 49ers gave up a 3rd round. Montez Sweat got a 2nd. You could look at a 2nd or 3rd, I think, realistically. And by the way, yeah, Barmore did sign an extension with the Patriots. He signed a nice extension, and then blood clots. It's just kind of a weird thing, just kind of a weird issue with the blood clots. So, I did want to touch base on. I touched base on this because Quentin Mitchell was my number 1 corner coming out of the draft, and I think it's very important that with the Vic Fangio defense that Quentin Mitchell be involved, even if it's as a nickel. You got to get him on board. because Philly's in kind of a weird situation. Now there's talk about Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni not getting along. Hurts apparently questioned his X's and O's. Keys brought this up, and I kind of poo-pooed it last year because Sirianni got into it with Chiefs fans after they beat the Chiefs on Monday night. They were 10-1 on top of the NFL. Then they just went into a free fall. Keys, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I remember last year you said that you thought it was kind of a big deal. I disagreed with you, and it's kind of looking like it was a big deal. Players kind of lost some respect for Sirianni. Now there's a rumor that Hurts is questioning Sirianni's X's and O's knowledge. Can you touch base on this a little bit? Like what's your thought process about Nick Sirianni, the Eagles? Is he on the hot seat? Throwing out some curveballs here at you. I apologize, but I think it's an interesting point.
And I think this year is going to be really interesting, right? Because you lose maybe the biggest leader in that locker room, in a long time vet, beloved Philly player, Pro Bowl top at his position, and a very mature, player, one of probably a few people who could, put Jalen Hurts in line and Nick Sirianni in line at the same time in Jason Kelce. So, I'm really interested to see what happens there. You bring in a older, more mature veteran defensive coordinator, but that adds a kind of a different dynamic to it, in a way. But maybe he's there to become the head coach next year. I don't know. I think it's interesting because I think Jason Kelce was kind of the glue, and I know he stood by Nick Sirianni, but let's face it, that's the kind of guy that Jason Kelce is. He's going to stick by anyone on his team because he's he just a top-notch teammate, and he understood as a leader. If he didn't stick behind his head coach, there were a whole lot of guys behind him that would follow him wherever he went in it. So I think it's a huge put up or shut up year for Nick Sirianni and Philly. And personally, I would have gotten rid of him this offseason when you had Vrabel and you had Belichick out there as options.
I'm saying I'm surprised he hasn't gotten a look. Or actually, I don't know if he's in the Browns right now. I heard, right?
Yeah, Vrabel's just hanging out with the Browns. He's got some fun title. There's a clip of him running a race against Jameis Winston, which I got a kick out of. But yeah, he's just hanging out with the Browns. And this is Perry. I have not heard this, but reports the Browns head coach won't re-sign with the Browns. I have not heard about this at all because Stefanski won Coach of the Year last year, but then Houston just demolished them in the playoffs. And
they got
destroyed. Yeah, don't get me wrong. The Flacco coming in and playing well the last couple of weeks of the season, it was a great story and everything. But no, I haven't heard this at all. But if you got Vrabel there, that's really interesting. Perry threw us a curveball. This is a great comment. That's why I love Perry coming into chat because I have not heard this. Have either one of you guys heard this story about Stefanski not re-signing with the Browns? Or is this just some rumor? Or
I haven't heard anything. I'm just hearing until he said something. So yeah, I'm just new to this news as well.
I'm in the same boat. Keys, have you heard anything about this? Is this just kind of a crazy story, or?
No, I haven't heard it.
Okay. If this is true, I've not heard this, Perry. But if it's true, the Vrabel hanging out makes a lot of sense. They lost their quarterbacks coach. He's in New England's the offensive coordinator. I was about ready to say they lost their offensive coordinator, but I forgot Alex Van Pelt was the quarterback's coach, not the offensive coordinator. The defense was really good last year. This may be one of those rumors because he's trying to get himself set up for a larger contract. But I haven't heard anything about this at all.
I'm looking online on the Browns website.
Yeah,
from what I'm seeing, he signed a contract extension at the beginning of June.
Okay. Yeah, I thought he did too. I'd be lying to you if I said I knew that. So this is probably just a rumor. Keys brings up a really good point here. If you're an established playoff team with a good quarterback 2 isn't about a young project guy. He's quarterback number 3. Quarterback number 2 is your assistant extension of the quarterback coach, helping with the scout team, etc. Yeah, I that's what Kansas City's done for the last couple of years. And let's be honest,
and the Patriots.
And the Patriots, that's kind of the model. Let's be honest, though, like the Detroit Lions, they're doing things all sorts of different, but I actually do like the Hendon Hooker because he brings something that can help you this year. But you have to realize if Hendon Hooker's quarterback number 2, you have to run something different than what Goff does. And that could be a problem. Baltimore's had that same issue, and then they've been drafting and bringing in guys very similar to Lamar Jackson. Tyler Huntley, who's now in Cleveland. I actually don't know who quarterback number 2 in Baltimore is. New England did that for a long time. But you're right. Detroit, though, they're doing things a little different. It's going to be interesting. Keith Suckfield is that assistant guy, but he's so Nate Suffield. I didn't see him play. I read the stat line. It didn't really look impressive. If I remember right, it was like 13 out 24, 97 yards. So anytime you have 13 completions, 97 yards, it's a lot of checkdowns. And Suffield is coming. All right. I guess there's not a lot of love for Nate Sudfield. And Perry brings up, I think the Browns head coach and Watson are not a good fit. I've said this a lot during my opinion here. I'm going to ask. I'll start off here with Keaton here. Keaton, Stefanski. Perry said that there was some rumors that he wasn't going to sign. We fixed that because Keys verified that he does have a contract extension, so Stefanski's going to be there. Mm-hmm. Sean Watson's guaranteed a lot of money, but as we've seen with Russell Wilson, he doesn't have to be there. Of course, are you getting a 1 and a 2 again for Deshaun Watson? Probably not. If you do get rid of Watson, you're going to have to get rid of him for a bag of potato chips. But is this going to be a problem, or is this the year where everything works for the Cleveland Browns offense? Watson stays healthy. They go undefeated. The only team that's better than them in Ohio is Ohio State, which Keaton's been adamant would go 15-2 in the NFL this year.
Yeah, I mean, to answer your question about Deshaun Watson, like I said, I think the Browns made a mistake giving him all that money to begin with, in my opinion. Like, Deshaun Watson, like, what type of Deshaun Watson are you going to get this year for the Browns? Like, can you get somewhat of what he was in Houston? Because so far, I know he was hurt last. I think he was hurt last year, wasn't he? Yeah, he got
injured in the Baltimore. By the way, the game he got injured in that ended this season, that was one of the best individual performances of the year. He went into Baltimore, beat Baltimore, and it was one of the greatest games I've ever seen a quarterback play. Mm-hmm. Partly because he got injured. I think it was a torn shoulder, or it was like a shoulder labrum or something. Right. Whatever it was, the injury he occurred happened, I think, in the second quarter, sidelined him for the rest of the season.
Wow. Yeah, like I said, I mean, I don't think, like I said, I think they made a mistake giving him all that money because, like, if he doesn't perform up to standard, like, what are the Browns doing? Like, I mean, what's your backup plan in case of, like, if it doesn't work out? Like, what's next at quarterback? Because, I mean, it's not easy to try to find, your quarterback out there. I mean, I think he has to perform. I mean, I think the Browns have talent. It's not the issue. I don't think talent is an issue because they have the defense. Myles Garrett, the beast at his position. Yeah, I think they have the receivers and all that. It's just a matter of, putting it together at the right time for them. And then they're at top of that. They have the hardest schedule in the league in the NFL on top of being in a low division. So, I think it's important for them to get off to a hot start. I think it's important for Deshaun Watson to play. I think he can play up to where I think he can be, but it just hasn't really lived up to. He hasn't really lived up to the expectations. But I mean, and Kevin Stefanski, like I said, people. Browns fan. I have some Browns fans, or my friends that are Browns fans, that aren't really a big fan of Stefanski. They think he's pretty predictable with his play call and all that stuff, and it's definitely showed last year in that playoff game against Houston. But yeah, I mean, in my opinion, I just think they made a mistake giving them all that money because I just don't think it's it's lived up to the hype and and stuff like that. So man, I think he has to perform this year in order for the Browns to do something if they want to go deep in the playoffs.
Keaton, what are your thoughts here? Is this going to work out? Are the Cleveland Browns going to win a Super Bowl? Is this going to work out well? Let me ask you that.
Oh, is this my question? Or...
I'm sorry. I said Keaton, but I meant Keys. I dropped the ball here. I'm even getting this. I can't call you guys baby, but this
baby one and baby two.
I can't do that, but this is why you always call your girl. So after the show tonight, Keaton's got 5 dates lined up, and he's on the East Coast. I'm on the West Coast. It's 6:00 here. I got my whole night. It's what 9, 10 over 9
at 9 o'clock. Yeah, 9:20.
All your girls are waiting. All 5 of them. That's why you got that big thing. That one is that 1,000 gallons that you're drinking, Keaton. That thing is huge. Can you bring it up again? Can you lift that thing? Barely.
It's not heavy. It's not that heavy.
That's how Keaton. That's why Keaton looks good, man. That's why Keaton works because he carries around that 1,000-gallon jug of water or vodka or whatever's in there. But he's got 5 dates tonight. So, but I meant Keys. Keys, what are your thoughts here? Deshaun Watson and Stefanski. Is this going to work? Can it work?
Hey, listen, you asked about, can they win a Super Bowl? I mean, there's a chance for every team to win a Super Bowl. Is it likely? That's one hell of a division, first off. So it's going to be really hard to even make the playoffs in that division. And, in my mind, they're not the top team in the division, right? I would probably give that hands down to the Ravens. And I think that you could debate, and I probably wouldn't argue with anyone if they debated between the other 3 teams who's going to finish second, third, and fourth, because I think it's a lot harder to differentiate those 3 teams, and I think there's a smaller margin between them than there is between them and the Ravens. Like, you're not winning that division unless Lamar gets hurt. That's what's been the case since Lamar's been there, basically, right? If Lamar is healthy, the Ravens are winning that division. Unless something catastrophic happens. And so, maybe on paper you put the Bengals at 2. But, Joe Burrow's a system quarterback, so it's really no. But, it's really hard to know what you're going to get out of that whole team, especially because they did take a huge step back on defense. And Burrow's offense, it has 2 number 1 wide receivers, but Joe Burrow and those receivers aren't what got them to a Super Bowl, aren't what got them past Kansas City. It was Lou Anarumo and his freaking defense that got them past Kansas City and got them in a Super Bowl to begin with. And so, have they made enough moves? Have they grown enough on defense to get past losing Jesse Bates? I think that's a huge question that, for me, is still a question mark in that division, to where if you wanted to make a case for the Steelers, who somehow seem to always be in it in the end, to be the second, to finish second, I would hear that, and I probably wouldn't argue with you. If you made the case for the Browns to finish second, I could see a lot of that, and I probably wouldn't argue with you. And the same for the Bengals. So I think those three teams, even though Bengals fans probably don't like me saying this, I think they are the margins between those three teams is smaller than between those three teams and the Ravens, in my opinion. And I think the Browns are going to have a hard time making the playoffs, let alone, making it to a Super Bowl, whether it's Stefanski or another coach or Watson and another like if it's Stefanski and another quarterback or Watson and another coach, I don't think it really makes a difference. I don't think they're making it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, that AFC North is just brutal. You got 4 teams.
I mean, yeah. I mean, like, even if, like, it's not, I mean, you saw last year, every team in that division was over 500. It's like, does 10 wins even get you in? Like,
no. 10 wins.
Ravens have the best coach and they have the best quarterback, and I'm a huge head coach quarterback combo. John Harbaugh, Lamar Jackson, 2-time NFL MVP Lamar Jackson. So,
and a healthy Burrow and was it Zach Taylor? That's not bad. From what I've seen, and I don't want to be the hot take guy, but I'm going to be the hot take guy today. Justin Fields and Tomlin, there's potential there. There's potential there. So Stefanski and Watson, I mean, yeah, I mean, you got 4 interesting combos there, and which defense is the best? Browns fans are going to say the Browns. Me and Keys love Lou Amaruno, and he got some he got some play toys in the draft, and they got a kid by the name of Miles Murphy who I think is going to have a huge year. He's going to have a huge year. If you don't know this, he'll probably there's a chance that if he gets to be the starter, because they got 3 defensive ends there in Cincinnati, they can do a lot of things. But that AFC North is just going to be absolutely brutal.
I mean, you can also say this too, like, I mean, like I said, I think the Ravens are still the best team in the division, but like they lose some pieces on the defense. You lost Mike McDonald, who went to Seattle. You did lose guys like Patrick Queen and Clowney and then Geno Stone. So like, what's the defense going to be like? I already know what the offense can do on their end, but when it's when it comes,
people are automatically assuming Derrick Henry is the same dude, but he's taken a lot of punishment and he's over 30 now. I mean, is that just plug and play? Is he now an all-pro running back all of a sudden? I mean, he was injured for part of the year last year. Now he's over 30, and people think I think he was on the NFL top 100 list. By the way, Keaton, a lot of people liked our breakdown of the top 100. So we may have to do that again.
Doing something, yeah, we're doing something right there.
Listen, I think Derrick Henry is. To me, he's and I don't mean difference maker, but he's the differentiator from them winning the division, right? Like those teams are not the same in the AFC North. Their offenses are not the same as Kansas City, right? No. Like the Ravens for as much hell as, they gave Monken and John Harbaugh for getting away from the run. It was that, Steve Spagnuolo's defense made enough defensive stops against the run in that game to where they had to get away from the run or they were going to punt every possession back to Kansas City. And you can't do that. But you can do that in the AFC North. So you can give the ball to Derrick Henry in those AFC North those 6 AFC North games, 20, 30 times and let him pound the hell out of those defenses. Let him pound the hell out of, that tough Steelers defense. Let him pound the hell out of that tough Browns defense. Like, you can wear those guys down. You're probably not doing it. Derrick Henry isn't there to play Kansas City in the playoffs because you got to get up on Kansas City before that, and you got to stay up for that to even be effective. But in that division, I think that's where he could come into play, even though, you get into that Tom Brady discussion. Is this the year that the wheels finally fall off for Derrick Henry? But I think he can still pound the defense and wear them out. in that division.
He'll need to. I mean, but I mean, look, you got look. When you're over 30, he wasn't healthy all of last year. If you're just banking on Derrick Henry being this all-pro,
well, they went through 35 running backs, each of the last few years anyway. So what's it hurt?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just saying if you're banking on Derrick Henry, I mean, good luck. Perry has a great question here. Keys, how do you think the AFC West will shake out? This is the year the Chargers win the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, just like the last 15, 20 years, right? So, if you're asking the order, obviously I think Kansas City is going to win the division, and I say obviously, but I still have respect for all the teams in our division. You could make, or I could, if I wanted to, I could make an argument for each one having a shot, at winning the AFC West. I think teams discount, or fans discount, how good the other teams in the AFC West are simply because they don't finish with great records necessarily. People look at records instead of actually watching the games and watching, how challenging, like you can watch, whether it's the Eagles or Cowboys or whatever, they play the Broncos can show up and they can hang with those guys. Not 9 out of 10 times, but enough. You know what I mean? And that's in the past. I think, year two of Sean Payton, getting things together. It'd be interesting to see what Jim Harbaugh's able to do in LA. But, the Chargers had injury issues on defense the last few years. And Brandon Staley was a terrible head coach. The Broncos had some bad luck with injuries on the offensive side last year. Both of those teams have great pieces. Antonio Pierce finished strong with the Raiders, but, can you carry that on? Because a lot of times when that happens and an interim head coach, gets hired, that next season, is a completely different thing because you don't have that same emotional ride. I believe in him. I'm willing to give him that benefit of the doubt because I think like mentally, intelligence, characteristic, the type of leader he is, he can motivate those guys, but he should probably cut the guy who did the little Kermit the Frog thing.
Yeah, that was not smart.
That's what I'm saying.
Not smart. I just showed that to a buddy of mine. And I was like, did you hear about this? He's like, hear about the Kermit the Frog what? And I was like, he goes, oh, God. Oh, God. And I'm like, dude, why poke the bear? Why poke the bear?
Why? When you're trying to, that's a team to beat, and you just decide to motivate them even more. Like you just,
of all the things that could have happened for the Kansas City Chiefs this year, that was it. So let me ask you this here, Keys. 2, 3, and 4. What's the order? Bet your life savings on it. Keys going to give you the answer.
Oh man, that is so rough.
Perry is bringing it today. Perry has some great questions today.
I'm going to go Chargers second, and again that's head coach quarterback combo. Harbaugh it wasn't like he was unsuccessful in the NFL, and he's definitely been a successful college coach. And Herbert should have won way more games than what he has. And I think, that's one of those, if he was in a different situation, Keaton, you ever dream about what if you guys had Justin Herbert, from the beginning of his career? How much different could that look for him? You know what I mean?
You know what? I said that would suck, but who would it suck for, Herbert or the Patriots?
I think it would have been more of a win for both sides, and that they would have won more.
Well, that's what I said. That's what I mean. Like, New England win games.
I mean, because the reality was Belichick was basically Tom Brady's first quarterback coach, right? So Belichick was the one pulling him. I don't know why I'm telling this story. Keaton's the Patriots fan, but Belichick was the one who was pulling him to the side and going over, quarterback coach type of stuff, breaking down defenses for Brady at the beginning there, and so I think he would at least do some of that similarly, with Herbert. Not that Herbert 100% needs it, but come on, if you have Belichick doing that, and people get lost, Belichick's the greatest defensive head coach of all times, but people forget that he could have been probably the greatest offensive head coach of all time if he wanted to. He's certainly, silently probably the best special teams coach of all times. He was a tight end in college, if I recall correctly, Keaton. He knows every aspect of the game. So I think it would have been more beneficial for Justin Herbert than what? He had a new offensive coordinator every year, and he had Staley as his head coach, and so for me, I think you got to trust in the Harbaugh name. You got that Jim was a quarterback, so to me that's got to be number 2. They still have enough pieces on offense and defense. Like my only hesitancy is you get rid of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, and granted, they had their huge injury concerns, but those guys' hands were like vacuums when you threw the ball towards them. And, like Mike Williams doing a jump ball or whatever. Like I just hated when they were healthy for him. But I would go Chargers after the Chiefs. It's just hard. Sean Payton has the history. Antonio Pierce doesn't have the history. I like Gardner Minshew though. So that one's really hard. I want to lean towards Payton simply because of the longevity of his coaching career in that one. And, both teams have pieces. I think it sucks. It would suck for me if I was a Raiders fan losing Josh Jacobs and what that means to their offense. So I almost want to say I would go Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos, Raiders.
Wow.
Well, it's funny because there's a Raiders YouTuber I just found. I listen to a lot of Raiders social media stuff, and I was thinking about bringing him on the show. Then he had a video showing how Aiden O'Connell is very similar to Tom Brady, and I was like, no, stop it, bad, no, not Tom Brady. So
Keaton, tell us about that time that Tom Brady had a whole half of football where he didn't even have a completion.
Yeah, I was like, and he had some really good points, and you can't be an NFL team and not be excited. I mean, there's Panthers fans right now that are excited, and I get that, but I was really enjoying this stuff, and then like, okay, here's how Aiden O'Connell's like Tom. I'm like, no. All right. Okay. So I had
Dan turned into Bobby Knight. He's just like throwing every chair.
I was like, Jesus Christ, come on, man. I know you're excited about your team, and I want the Raiders to be excited.
That's a level of delusion right up there with Caleb Williams.
Yeah. Yeah. So
man.
So Keys says Chargers, Broncos, Raiders. That's a great list here.
I'm gonna answer for both divisions actually.
Okay. Keaton's going to go both ways here.
All right, so I'm gonna start from the bottom. I got Denver finishing in last place in that division, and these are the reasons why. Like I think Bo Nix. I don't think he's a bad quarterback by any means. I think the potential is there, but I'm just looking at just the overall division. I just don't think like Denver has struggled against the Raiders the past like 2-3 years. I don't think they've beaten the Raiders. I think they lost their last like 8 or 9 matches Raiders or something crazy like that. You got rid of Russell Wilson, and that Peyton marriage obviously didn't work out. So you bring in a rookie quarterback, and some of these Broncos fans out here, like I understand that you think you're gonna. I think you guys can, maybe surprise if things go well, but it's gonna take time. It's like I just think you have to embrace the suck as of this year. I think I don't think you guys are gonna be as good. I think your guys' defense is decent. I mean that's the only really bright spot I see, but I'm just looking at the talent. I don't think you guys are going to win a lot of games. I think you guys may win like 4, maybe 5 games at max, in my opinion. So that's where I have Denver. Third place, I have the Chargers. I think, I like what Jim Harbaugh is doing, the way he's building this thing. He likes to build through the trenches on both sides of the ball. I like the Joe Alt pickup, obviously, in the draft to, solidify the offensive line. But there's going to be growing pains there as well for him. He's a rookie, even though he is one of the top tackles coming out of the draft. Justin Herbert, I think he'll have a big year statistically. It's just going to be a matter of it's going to take time because you have a lot of new pieces and stuff like that. I think it's going to take them a year. I think in 2025, I think they'll be a lot better, more of a competitive team. They will be competitive, but in terms of them making the playoffs, I think it will be like a year before before I can call them a playoff contender. So I have the Chargers there at third. Second, I have the Raiders. And despite, like I said, I love the Wilkins pickup there for that defense. And you have him and Crosby on that side. I mean, they have a chance to be one of the – I'm not saying they're going to be the best defense, but they're going to be one of the best defenses next year. I think their defense is going to be the reason why they win games. Not completely sold with – I mean, listen, Minshew, he did a phenomenal job last year. Almost took the Colts to the playoffs. Made a great throw, and I can't remember his name, dropped the ball on the boundary. They probably would have won the division last year if didn't drop the pass. But I think Minshew, obviously, he'll keep you in games. He won't, be himself. He'll throw the ball away when he needs to. He'll make the right reads and stuff like that. But it's just going to be a matter of how consistent, the Raiders' offense will be. I think, Antonio Pierce is a good coach. I think he did a good job coming in as an interim, and now he's the head coach now. But we'll see how he builds off of last year going into this year. So I have the Raiders finishing second. And obviously the Chiefs. I was actually looking at y'all's schedule too. And
schedule's pretty
y'all, I seriously, I'm not even joking. I think you guys may have a shot to sweep the whole division this year.
I think it's much more likely that we sweep the division this year after last year because we lost to Denver for the first time. I looked it up. Last time we lost to the Broncos was in 1891. That's a true stat. We lost to them in Denver. Nobody liked that. And then everybody's Christmas was ruined when the Raiders won. On Christmas Day. That was just terrible. That ruined everybody's Christmas. People out here in Vegas were even having a sad Christmas because the Raiders won on Christmas. That was some bullshit.
It was a delayed present because at the end of the day, Kansas City won the Super Bowl in that stadium.
That is correct. That is correct. But I'm going to backtrack, Keaton, here. There's 2 things I want to talk about with your predictions. Number 1, you think Minshew's going to beat Aiden O'Connell. So are you telling me Aiden O'Connell's not the second coming of Tom Brady?
Not even close.
Okay. All right.
He's saying that Minshew is Drew Bledsoe, Tom Brady's first year.
Here's another thing, and I didn't bring this up, but I was going through some information. The Broncos are going to start Stidham for the first preseason game, and then 6 days later for preseason game number 2, which it looks like what NFL teams are doing that are playing the 3 preseason games is that the starters are going to play, in game 2. Then they're going to start Nix. So you're planning on Nix being the starter, and you're planning on Minshew being the starter.
Yeah. Oh, I think he will be by the end. Okay. I mean, Stidham, like I said, he's been, he's been around the league. So I mean, he pretty much knows the system. But I mean, Bo Nix, if he just shows out and just does his job, I mean, you never know. I mean, Bo Nix has the potential. He has a good arm. It's just a matter of how comfortable are you with just throwing him out there with not a lot of talent to work with. So
no, I agree, and I think Nick's going to start day one. You got Minshew starting. That's kind of an interesting battle here with the Raiders, and the problem is with the Raiders is that I don't care who's the starting quarterback. That offense is not going to be good. I don't care all the talk I hear about Bowers. I don't care how good Devontae Adams is. There's been some off the wall trade talk. Matter of fact, there was a rumor that the Raiders and Patriots was talking about Devontae Adams, but I don't think it's a legitimate talk. But
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. And
AFC East here, Keaton. Let's hear. So you got Joe Milton as the starting quarterback day one for the Patriots, winning that division, correct?
Man, that would be crazy. If we somehow came out and went, yeah, that would be insane. But realistically, like I said, I'm gonna start with the bottom. Obviously, I think my team will finish last, but we will improve record-wise, I believe, this year. We were 4-13 last year. It was a disaster last year. That was probably one of the hardest things to watch last year.
Throw out another curveball here. I've partnered up with BetUS, and BetUS has the over/under yearly win total at 4.5 right now for the New England Patriots. Are you saying you can bet your life savings on over 4.5 wins for the Patriots this year?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
All right, life savings. You can make a fortune this year. Keaton Talk Sports guarantees it or your money back. By the way, your first 3 deposits, 125% bonus. Check it out. The link is below. Patriots are last.
So, yeah, I think we'll finish, obviously. I mean, it's a loaded division. I mean, we understand what we're stacked against, Miami, New York, and then the Bills, obviously. But like I said, we have a lot of new pieces. No Bill Belichick anymore. Got rid of Mac Jones. Gerard Mayo, obviously coming in. He's obviously played for the Patriots during his time here. First time head coach. Bringing in Drake May and all that stuff. New wide receivers that we got: Polk, Javon Baker, KJ Osborne, who we got from Minnesota. I think the potential is there for those receivers, but unproven. But I think it's going to be a learning year for New England. I mean, there's going to be growing pains along the way. I understand that as a Patriots fan. But what I want to see from our team this year is just be relevant offensively. Like, it was kind of hard to really – I mean, we averaged, I believe it was 12 points or 13 points a game last year. Or per game last year. It was
your offense was really hard to watch, man.
Yeah, they were the Iowa Hawkeyes in the NFL.
Oh, my gosh. They probably would beat us, honestly, last year. Looking at – I don't know. Who knows, but it just realistically, I think our offense will be a little better this year. I like the pieces we got in the draft. Didn't do much in free agency, obviously. We got some, I guess, second tier players, but like I said, we understand the situation that we're in. Obviously, no big time free agents going to come to us right now. I think this is a big year, in my opinion, just because if we want to get the big time free agents to come to New England, I think we have to improve. And we have to show promise during the regular season. Offense has to be better. We already know what the defense can do. I think it's going to be one of the best in football, as it hasn't already been already. But if our offense can just be somewhat in the middle of the pack, Drake May shows promise. If he is a starting quarterback, I think Jacoby Brissett is smart to start him. I think the Patriots will compete. I think we will sneak out some games. So I think we can win around 6-7 games or whatever. I think that's realistic. If things really go well, I think it's important too. The last few years we started off 1-3, and I think if we can somehow, we had the Bengals, for example, the first game of the season, 9-point underdogs. I think there's a chance we could possibly sneak out of a dub there, because you look at the Bengals the last couple of years. They normally start off slow. They've been 0-2 the last 2-3 years, and they normally get hot towards the end of the year. So you never know what that game could, or who can, or if we can win that game or not. We'll see, but. I think we will compete, but I think it's going to be a year. I think next year will be a much better football team in terms of trying to not just, make the playoffs, but potentially compete maybe for the division, assuming Miami or Buffalo falls off and stuff like that. So I got the Patriots in last place. I think we can win around 6, maybe 7 games if things really play out. So, and then in third place, I got the Jets. I think the Jets are way too overhyped. I mean, I really think they are. I think, last year, Aaron Rodgers going out in 4 plays. And I did like what they did in the draft, getting Fashanu. I think it was a smart move. I mean, there were a lot of talks about them getting Bowers, but I'm like, if you want to protect Rodgers, you got to get him some help on the O-line. I think Fashanu And you never know with Tyron Smith, and obviously he hasn't played a full season. So I think for Sean, we'll see some playing time this season, if not early, in my opinion. Defense, I think their defense is legit. I think they do have a Super Bowl defense, but it's going to be a matter of, can their offense be able to sustain drives? Like that was a struggle last year, obviously, without Rodgers. Defense got them stops. Defense got them great field position. Offense wasn't able to do much with that turnover that the defense created. So now that Aaron Rodgers is back on the field with the weapons that they got this offseason, they should be better offensively. Now, on paper, they should win the division. But the question is, will they? I'm just not believing in the hype.
Tyron Smith can't stay healthy. You got Morgan Moses, who's 36, is starting on the right side. You got some good points. Let me ask you this, even if they finish third, because the AFC North, we talked about beating up each other. Can the Jets finish third in the AFC East and make the playoffs?
I don't think so.
No playoffs.
I think so. I mean,
let me throw out something here, because I think all three of us, but I haven't asked Keys. The Jets finish third, don't make the playoffs. You have to fire Salah, right?
Have to.
What do you think, Keys?
I think it depends on how it happens, right? Does Rodgers get injured again? Is he just show that he's can't come back from his injury and he's washed up? I think that would be about the only way that you can say, okay, if everything else goes great on the Jets, then I think you can say, it was the quarterback position, and you get into that whole Broncos mentality, pre-Russ of we're just a quarterback away. And I think that's it, because if that's the reason they lose, right? If they make the playoffs, or, you get to the last game and he pulls a Brandon Staley and, calls a timeout instead of just letting the Raiders, kneel down and both teams make the playoffs, you got to give him as a coach a chance to lose the job. If the players are playing behind him, if it's something stupid like another fluke Rodgers injury, or he's just washed up, but if everything else shows that, Saleh is still a great coach. Now, if there's internal stuff that they see, that's a completely different story, but we don't, really hear that, until after they fire someone. So me, I can't just say black and white, yes, you fire him, because I think it really depends on like all the circumstances around how they get there, if that's where they end up.
Normally I would agree word for word with what you're saying. But I think the Jets and that organization and that town in the media market, after 3 consecutive 7-10 seasons, I think if the Jets don't make the playoffs, no matter what, I think Salah will be gone. I think the expectations and the pressure are that high. And I think some organizations like the Pittsburgh Steelers would say, okay, Pittsburgh, of course, Tomlin's been there for, I want to say this is year 17.
17.
I don't see the Jets doing that. I really do. I think if Salah doesn't make the playoffs, I think there's a good chance if the Jets get into the playoffs losing the wild card round, Salah could still be gone. I think.
Who are you replacing him with? Like, if you want to say, if Belichick is a legit candidate to replace him, or even Vrabel, or I'm there with you. But you had look at the history of coaches that you've had in New York.
There's a great list either. I just think New York. Here's a legitimate candidate. Named Brain Freeze. Let's just say Rodgers has a good year, but they get to the playoffs and they lose in the wild card round. But Rodgers looks good. The offense looks good. I'm drawing the brain freeze.
Like Johnson.
The offensive court. Well, I was thinking Ben
Johnson.
Johnson too, but I'm thinking about
Johnson, yeah.
the Jets offensive coordinator who was the head coach with the Broncos.
Oh,
Nathaniel Hackett. And this is only if this is only if Nathaniel, and this is also if Aaron Rodgers, how much pull Aaron Rodgers has. If Aaron Rodgers doesn't want Salah, but he pushes for Nathaniel Hackett to take over, and the Jets offense is mediocre to good, Nathaniel Hackett could take over, which would be a disaster, I think.
Yeah, if they fired Saleh for Nathaniel Hackett, that would be.
I actually could see the Jets doing that. I really could see that.
That would be some Mark Davis and Al Davis type of.
I could see the Jets doing that, but I think if the Lions offense is good, which I'm anticipating, Ben Johnson will be a big name again. By the way, the link below to my NFC East prediction or NFC East preview video is out. The link's below. Please check it out. I said in that video because I really like what Cliff Kingsbury is able to bring as the offensive coordinator. I like Jaden Daniels to be rookie of the year. I said that in the video. He's a guy that would also be a potential name to be a head coach candidate. That might be a guy. I'd have a hard time believing that you would fire Salah and replace him with a guy like Kingsbury, but we're just throwing out names at this point. I just think that the Jets organization is just going to say, hey, you don't get us to the playoffs, at least you're gone. A wild card loss might not be good enough.
And the thing too, and I agree. Like, I think if they don't make the playoffs, something has to change. Like, it's not even so much change. It's all the talk that they've been getting this offseason about, oh, we're going to win 13.
Yeah.
Oh, we're supposed to win the Super Bowl. And it's like, okay, then go out and prove it. Like, you guys haven't made the playoffs since 2011. It's 2024. Like, you have the roster. There's really no excuse if, like, let's say if Rodgers does have a good year or whatever, and the Jets still don't make the playoffs. Like, I think Jets fans are really going to, like, I think there will be a riot. And I'm just being real. Like, with that team you have, there's no reason why. With especially with Buffalo, look at the Buffalo Bills. I want to get to my next point. Like, I think the Jets will finish third because I just think the expectations, like, Jets fans are getting way too excited for a team that's probably going to win only 8 games, 9 games. Now you make the playoffs. So, like,
the Jets are not making the playoffs. I love it. I love it.
And then, like, in second place, like, I think the Bills, I think they will get dethroned this year.
Oh, wow.
They will get dethroned. Now, I still have the Bills making the playoffs as a wild card, but I think they will. Like, I think they'll take a little bit of a step back in terms of the record. I think they'll win like 9-10 games probably. I haven't gotten my official. I'm still working on my prediction video. I'll have that out here real quickly.
I was going to ask about that while you were talking. I checked, and you don't have your video out yet. So, by the way, when Keaton has his video out, hopefully he'll let me know so I can go ahead and I can show you. I have my AFC East prediction video out Monday.
Gotcha. Yeah, nice. There you go. I can't wait to watch that. That'll be awesome. But Bills second because, like I said, I don't think Stephon. I think people are making a big deal of Stephon, like them losing Stephon Diggs. Like, yeah, he's a good player, but like he was definitely a problem in the locker room. And I think the Bills did a good job. And the problem with them last year is they got they had a bunch of old players like Jordan Poyer. They got younger in the draft, which is something they really need, especially on the defensive side. I think their defense, they probably won't be as good as they were last year, but they'll be good enough where it'll carry them to some victories. Keon Coleman, I think he's going to be something special in this league, in my opinion.
I follow a lot of Bills on social media. They were raving about him in OTAs being wide receiver number 1. There was a lot of hype about Keon Coleman already. I'm like, ooh boy, he's supposed to look good in shorts. Well, we'll see. I mean, I think he has to have a big year for the Bills to repeat as
I agree, yeah.
NFC East champions. He has to have a big year. That's a lot of pressure on technically a second round pick. He was pick number 33. So
And I think it's just not even just his his style of play. It's just, look at his just overall character. I think he definitely fits into what the Bills want to do. So I'm definitely curious to see, how the offense functions without Stephon Diggs. And then obviously, I think this is going to be a big year for Josh Allen too. You know, like people question, is he still going to be a top 5? I still think he can be a top 5 quarterback because, you know, he can use his legs. He can make plays out of nothing. He still has a cannon arm and all that stuff. So Josh Allen's going to be Josh Allen. But again, like I said, they did lose some key pieces this offseason, which that's kind of the reason why I have them finishing behind the team I'm going to be talking about next, and that's the Miami Dolphins. Finally, the Dolphins I think they should win the division this year, despite them losing Wilkins on the defense. I still think their offense in this division, I still think the offense is the best in the division. Like you have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle locked up still. You still have, Tua, who you just resigned to a deal, even though I think that will come back to bite them down the road. But we'll see what happens there. But their offense, like I said, it's very, very explosive. They had a really good year last year. But like I said, despite them winning the division, is this team a Super Bowl contender? That's the question that I'm going to get to next. Like, they did struggle against teams over 500 last year. I mean, yeah, you beat the teams that you should beat, but you had the division locked up. You had like a 5-game lead against Buffalo, and then you choked that away, and then it came down to week 18. So what are you going to do when you go up against teams like the Chiefs? You know what I'm saying? Can you beat those teams? So like, if Miami somehow gets home field, can they beat the Chiefs? It's yet to be seen. You've seen the Chiefs last year go into Baltimore and beat them. So it's like, I don't know, man. The Chiefs are pretty battle tested, even if they have to go on the road or if they're at home. But, I think Miami, in my opinion, if they want to get to a Super Bowl, I think they have to try to get home field advantage because obviously we all know how they are when they go on the road. I mean, I knew last year when they went to Kansas, I'm like, they're not winning this game. With that weather and stuff last year, I'm like, there's like, Tua can't even throw the football last year. It was kind of hard to watch.
It was funny. I have never been less nervous about a playoff game than I was about Miami, Kansas City. As soon as I watched Tua go out there with like 7 layers, barely able to move, I'm like, oh yeah, we're good. I'm not. I was so. It was one of those things. I was so relieved. It was such a good feeling. We had some great comments in the chat here. Jen, I'm going to butcher this name. Jen Will Bowl Andres. I'm probably not even close to that. This individual has a great question. Do you think the Dolphins, I love the 3 L's in Dolphins, obviously not a Dolphins fan, do anything this year except Tua being a flat track bully? I love the comment. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm sorry, Keaton. This is why you call him baby. Keaton, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you have the Dolphins winning the East. Do you think that there's a chance this is the second best team in football? So I'm throwing that question out because you were talking about home field advantage. So that means that you have them as the 1 or 2 seed in the AFC. And then this is a great question. Do you think the Dolphins are going to do anything this year? These are some great questions. I want to hear from both of you guys.
I guess I'll start. I mean, I don't have them. I think they will have they will have not home field advantage, but they will have a home playoff game. I don't think they'll be I still think the Chiefs and the Ravens are your 2 best teams in the AS and the AFC. I think the Dolphins are in the next tier between like 3 and 4. But in terms of do I think they'll do anything this year? Like I said, it's all going to come down to what they do in December because we all know every year the Dolphins, they start off hot like they always do, and then they come crumbling down come December. Like, what are you going to do when you go to, go to the cold? Oh, did he leave? Oh, Dan left. I think.
We're in charge again.
Sorry, yeah. It's the second time it's happened, yeah. I guess, but I guess I'll keep talking until he gets back. But, yeah, I think, it's going to come down to what they do in December. I mean, Dolphins normally choke in December every year. And can you beat teams over 500 again? That's something they've always struggled with. They beat teams that they know they can beat, like the Titans. I don't even know how they lost to the Titans last year. I don't know if they're having that big lead, but that's another story for another day. But overall, it's going to come down to what they do in December, and can they get home field advantage? I think that's the only way the Dolphins can really go deep because they did have a pretty solid home record last year. They were terrible on the road last year. I mean, got blown out Baltimore, all that stuff. Got blown out twice against the Chiefs. Won the regular season. I think the game was in Germany, I believe, or something. And then Yeah, and then the game at in the wild card round. So, in my opinion, I think if the Dolphins want to get close to the Super Bowl, let alone the AFC Championship, I think they have to get home field advantage. That's just my opinion. Just given the history there with them.
Yeah, and I know Dan has a lot less respect for Mike McDaniel and his offensive mind than I do. But and so I expect the offense to take a step forward, and I believe you do too. I think we all agree that probably it was a huge mistake to give Tua all that money. I think where I would push back is, you lose Wilkins. You not only lose Wilkins, but you lose Van Ginkel, who was a huge pass rushing presence for that Dolphins defense. You lose your defensive coordinator, and you cut half your secondary. Like, this Dolphins defense is not going to be half as talented, in my opinion, at least on paper, is past Dolphins defenses. And I'm not sure how much more Mike McDaniel can actually add to his offense. Like, if he can utilize the tight end position, that might be one thing. But at the end of the day, he's still handicapped by Tua's limitations. And I think that those things, that defense, losing all that on defense, losing your defensive mind at defensive coordinator, losing your Christian Wilkins, losing your Van Ginkel, and there was another guy too. Who was it, Dan, that they lost? With Jerome Baker, is that who it was?
They lost
a lot of pieces.
The Dolphins lost a ton. By the way, I apologize because I had coffee, I had water, I had an energy drink, and you remember that Austin Powers where he gets unfrozen? That's what happened. All right, I am so sorry. That's what Keaton's doing right now because he's drinking that 3,000-gallon water tank. So either that or I don't know how you do it. Can you lift that up and show everybody that, like, this thing is massive. This thing is awesome, man. Okay, it's not as big as that. Yeah. That's what she said.
Stays cold all day. Stays cold all day.
That's a good thing.
We just kept going, Dan. We knew what you were doing.
I'm glad. I'm going to come clean because I'm sorry. I dropped the ball. I right before the show started.
Adult diapers.
I probably do need
a host.
Because right before the show started, I've been drinking this. I forget what it's called. I picked up from Costco. It's a vegetable. It's basically beet juice is what it is. So I mix it up in the mixer. I just slammed that thing, and then I slammed coffee. I'm drinking water. I'm drinking why I'm drinking an energy drink, I don't know. I really don't need it. I'm pretty jacked up, but I'm drinking an energy drink. So I was going to explode. And next show I will be doing adult diapers. So the Dolphins lost a ton of members. They did get, and I apologize. I'm going to get through all these comments because they did sign. Where is it? Keys brought it up here.
I think Chop Robinson would be a good. I think he'll be something good. I'm not saying he's going to be anything crazy, but I think he'll.
Micah Hyde, that's the guy I was thinking of. But they signed him from Buffalo. And I thought that was a good pickup.
Oh, I thought they get Poyer?
Was it? No, it's Poyer. Poyer. They lost. So Buffalo lost Hyde and Poyer. Poyer signed with Miami. I got the two mixed up. This is why I call her baby. You get names mixed up all the time. But no, they signed Poyer, but they lost Wilkins. They lost Van Ginkel. They lost Jerome Baker. They have that guy I have a massive man crush on out of Oregon.
What position?
The safety. And then they lost Javon Holland. They got Javon Holland, who I think is really on the verge of being a superstar safety. But then they lost the corner. They lost their Pro Bowl corner. I want to say Xavier McDaniel. That's right.
Howard.
It's Xavier or something. I want to say Xavier.
Xavier and Howard.
Xavier Howard. That's the guy I was thinking of. But yeah. So yeah, and you're right, Keys. I don't think as much of Mike McDaniel as a lot of people. And this is a great comment because I think the Dolphins are going to struggle with the offensive line losses. Your starting left tackle, you give a bunch of money to. he was threatening retirement. And you never want to hear a starting offensive lineman go, well, I was thinking about retiring, but I'm going to come back and play. Like I'm like 65% sure. And you don't want to hear your starter.
Unless it's Jason Kelsey, because if he does come back, he's 100%.
Yeah, Kelsey can be a story.
Yeah.
Jason Kelsey's a different story, but I'll ruin this because I'm going to release it Monday. But I know I don't have the Dolphins being nearly as good because I don't think Tua is going to stay healthy because you have a bad offensive line that lost a lot of players. And you got a quarterback who wasn't able to stay healthy at Alabama. He wasn't able to stay healthy except for that last year. Then you lose a bunch of starters on your offensive line, and you lose like your defense, and you lose a really good defensive coordinator. But I will say this: if Tua stays healthy for 17, it's a playoff team. If I could put money on Tua playing over under 15 games, I would bet on the under, and I wouldn't even think about it. It's just money in the bank. But I hate banking on players' health, but I mean, let's be honest. If your NFL career is what's year 5 to it, this is year 6. So in his first 5 years in the league, Tua has been able to stay healthy for 1 year. I'm not banking on him staying healthy for a whole season again. Especially when you have massive losses in your offensive line, and then your starting left tackle's like, well, I'm like thinking about retiring. Well, I'm in, I'm out. You don't want to hear that. So yeah. That's a problem. And Perry nailed it, because you have Skylar Thompson, who, by the way, Pete was it Pete Knows Dolphins? Pete Talks Dolphins. I apologize. He's been a guest on my show before. He's been a guy who's been adamant that Tua should not be here, but but you gave him a lot of money, so you're banking on him. Knock on wood, he stays healthy. Because I love the kid. If I had a daughter, I would want her to date Tua, but I'm gonna do a rapid fire because I got really behind on questions, and I want to get back to us talking football and everything, but I think Henry will need to be healthy, a solid season. Teams need to worry about Lamar running. That will help Henry. Perry, I completely agree, but like I said, you hit 30 and you're an NFL running back. Lamar losing weight, they've got to stay healthy.
And I want to add that too. It's like, look at the situation last year in that Chiefs game. Like, what if they run up against the Chiefs in the playoffs? They somehow shut down Derrick Henry. Now Lamar Jackson's going to have to make plays in the throwing game. He struggled to throw the ball against the Chiefs last year. So, I mean, yeah, you can bank on, Derrick Henry to, save the day. But, Lamar Jackson's going to have to make plays. And he had a terrible performance last year in that game.
He's never showed up in the playoffs. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I hate to say it, but, I mean, Lamar Jackson in playoffs is just terrible.
Yeah. Chiefs are in their head. I think that's what that is.
I saw this question, and I want to answer this, a left field question. What rule changes do you anticipate impacts teams? And I saw this, and we were talking, and I wanted to make sure that we answer all the questions because there's some really good ones in here. A left field question is, what rule changes do you anticipate impacts teams? And I want to get your guys' opinion on this here. Keaton, I'll start off with you. Put the pressure on here because this is a tough one. What rule changes do you anticipate will impact teams? It's a tough one, but listen, all questions are answered. Anything goes. This is a tough one, though.
I answered it in the chat, by the way.
Yeah, I saw your comment in here, and this is a great comment. This is a great comment, by the way. Key says, I'd say the hip drop tackles, the rule change that will impact teams and games.
Oh, I was just about to say that same thing as well. The hip drop tackle. What about I guess the horse collar tackle can be part of it as well. I mean, I know that was called a lot last year.
This is a great question. And what it is that the NFL over the years, and they're going to do the same thing. And by the way, Perry kind of answered this for me. He says the NFL will do an NBA, start limiting the defense going forward because the hip drop tackle, this is designed to limit defenses to increase scoring. The special teams changes are designed to increase scoring, but I think that's going to backfire. I from what I'm seeing in preseason is that it's limiting the offense, not helping the offense, and it'll lower scoring. So I think that there will be a change next year to hurt the defense to help the offense, because last year was the first time I think in 12 years that the NFL's scoring dropped, but it didn't hurt ratings. But the NFL's obsessed with more points, more scoring. They think it's more ratings. I would like to see just the opposite, but
yeah,
yeah, they've been doing this for a long time, and the NFL's done a great job by adapting to the changes. But last year, take a look at the Chiefs. They won a 38-35 Super Bowl 2 years ago. Last year, they win a 25-22 Super Bowl. I think both Super Bowls are great, but the 25-22 Super Bowl, I think, was a little more entertaining.
Yeah.
Thanks to the playoff rule changes. Thank you, Buffalo, by the way. We have to keep thanking the Bills for all sorts of things. Thanks for the rule changes. Thanks for letting us trade up so we can get Patrick Mahomes. So, thank you, Buffalo Bills.
Xavier Worthy.
Yeah, another trade we made. That's going to be an interesting thing. Who's going to have the better season, Keon Coleman or Xavier Worthy? Because I'll be honest, Xavier Worthy would have made a lot of sense for Buffalo. But, we'll find out. We'll find out. Perry, any reports on how Knicks is doing? Is this a make or break year for Sean Payton? I'm going to answer the first part, but I want these two guys to answer the next part. The reports early on are just okay. Nothing spectacular. We'll have to wait and see what he does in preseason. Not this first game, but the second game when he starts, he's probably going to play the first half. We'll have to wait and see. But that's all I've heard so far. If these guys have any other information, throw it out there. But I want to know, and I'll start with Keys. Is this a make or break year for Sean Payton? Is there a chance that Sean Payton's fired if they go like 3-14?
I want to say no, because I think, obviously first off, you're owned by Walmart, right? So you have people in who aren't just going to make emotional decisions, who are, have their advisors. They're going to, have their discussions, and they're all going to talk about things. And I think that was probably likely part of Sean Payton's hiring process. What's your vision for the team? I think it was probably pretty clear, that he was willing to give Russ a try, but he wasn't in, Russ wasn't a part of Sean's, vision. And I think it's probably understood at this point, year two, that you're probably not going to win, right? I think it's kind of somewhat similar, to Gerard Mayo's situation. Like, I think if you expect to win, with those circumstances, it's kind of ridiculous. And I know, Dan, you didn't think that Payton would ever finish his contract when he signed it, and that might be the case. No. I just don't think this early into the contract, and given those circumstances, and I go back to, who are you going to replace him with? Because I do believe Saleh is a good coach. I do believe Sean Payton's a good coach, and he's got a Super Bowl. Saleh's got one no, he doesn't have one as a defensive coordinator. Thank you, Kansas City. It's if you somehow was convinced that, again, I go back to it. If you were somehow convinced that Bill Belichick, was the savior of your franchise, and you were willing to give him up, give him as much control as he wanted, or, even Vrabel, or if you just fell in love with Ben Johnson or whatever, I think all bets are off. But I think it would be hard to see this Denver Broncos ownership pull a move like that. Mark Davis? Sure, absolutely. A Walton owning the Broncos, I don't think that makes it very likely.
Keaton, is there a chance? Let's just say everything falls off the tracks, because when you did a video, you made one of your predictions as a 1-3 win team, the Denver Broncos. Now let's just say your prediction is true, and Denver's one of the worst teams in football. Does that mean Sean Payton would be fired?
That's a tough one because, like, I mean, let's just say they do go 3-14 or they go 4-13, whatever. Like, who, like, because he just got there just last year, right? That's last year was the first year in Denver.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, who you like what other head coaches are gonna go there if you were to fire him? That's the only question I would have. Like, I don't know, man. I guess
Eric Bieniemy.
What's he? I don't even know where he is right now.
He's the
UCLA.
Yeah. Do you remember? I don't know if I'm willing to bet you don't remember him, but do you remember Deshaun Foster by any chance? That's the head coach. He was the Panthers' first round pick a couple years ago. He was a running back at UCLA. He's a head coach now. He's only 29 if I remember right. I actually remember him as a player. And then when I found out he was taking over, by the way, Denver Gator just joined the chat, and welcome Denver Gator. And Denver Gator was one of those who said that Chip Kelly was going to leave UCLA as soon as UCLA said that they were going to leave. So then Deshaun Foster and Eric Bieniemy took over there. But according to Denver Gator, he's not going anywhere. Like you guys said, who's better?
Yeah, I don't see that. Plus, like, you know, before he even he could have gone anywhere else before he chose Denver. Like he at the end of the day, he chose that to be in that situation. Now you have to build it back up, which, like I said, you're in the lower division with the Chiefs, obviously, who's dominating the division. Chargers, yeah, they're up and coming, but they still have some ways to go there. And then the Raiders are obviously a team that's always competitive here. So, yeah.
Yeah, I knew Deshaun Payton, Russell Wilson wasn't going to work. I knew that, but I also was curious if the Broncos would be willing to let go of a quarterback that quickly and take the loss. And when they did that, now I'm like, okay, Sean Payton's there to stay. Do I think Bo Nix is the answer? That's a great question. I think Bo Nix is in the right situation because I think Denver could be a 5-12 team. Maybe 3-14, and you could say, okay, well, look, you know, we have this cap issue. Peyton will be fine. Nix may not be the guy. And there's a quarterback right there in Boulder, Shadir Sanders, that might be a great fit for Denver, you know, and Sean Payton, by the way, Sean Payton and Deion Sanders do have a good relationship. So if that were to happen, I could easily see them saying, hey, Bo Nix, hey, you're bad. Shadir Sanders is good. We're going to make the move.
That's all.
I could see something like that happening.
I
think Denver's going to surprise people. I think they're in hover around 500. I really do. I think they're hover around 500.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I think the defense is going to be good. I think the offense just has to be mediocre. They may, if they get out to an early start, maybe they can threaten for a wild card. They're not going to challenge the Chiefs, but I don't think Sean Payton's going to go anywhere. Yeah, I didn't know this, but the Dolphins played 4 out of the last 6 on the road, including 3 in colder weather cities. I didn't know that, and that's going to be a big issue.
Their last 5 games are brutal.
Yeah, I do know that. The Dolphins final the end of season, the Dolphins is brutal. I'm going to ruin this for you guys, but my AFC East prediction video, it's going to come out. Ideally, it comes out Monday. I'm going to say the same thing I'm going to say now. I don't have the Dolphins making the playoffs this year. And I think it could be some problems, but I do think that the Tua contract is going to hamper that team. And all those losses on defense.
He gets hurt too. Crap too. He can, yeah.
You didn't have a lot of draft picks. You did draft Chop Robinson. Well, I'm kind of anxious to see where that's going to happen. But to answer this question, which goes in hand with what I'm going to say, I think losing your defensive coordinator plus several key defensive starters plus an injury-prone quarterback equals a not going to the playoffs. So,
yeah, I agree with that.
yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, some love for Keaton's water bottle. Little fun fact, it's filled with vodka. It's filled with vodka. Fun fact, it's not water at all. It's filled with vodka.
That makes it a giant flask.
It is a giant flask. Hey, Keaton, how would you feel if Ohio State loses to Michigan again? Denver Gator, not only does he come on late, but he comes strong. Keaton,
That's a good question.
how would you feel?
That's a great question. Like, if we lose to Michigan this year, then Ryan Day has to be gone, right? I mean, that's
Oh my God, Ryan Day firing.
That's 4 years in a row. Losing to Michigan. If you lose this year, you really have no excuses this year. Especially with all the stuff that came out with Michigan, with Harbaugh, all the cheating scandals and all that stuff like that. There's no excuses this year for Ohio State. If you lose to Michigan, then something's got to change. Like, what perfect year than to beat them at home too? Like, you have everything going your way. Yeah, Ohio State really has no excuse. That's all. They have no excuse not to beat Michigan.
So Ryan Day gets fired. Chip Kelly takes over. Day goes to Florida. Sounds good.
Hey, he can go. I mean, if he gets fired, he can go anywhere and help that.
It's the opposite of Urban Meyer, who left Florida to take the Ohio State job. Ryan Day gets fired and goes down to Florida and resurrects Florida. Which by the way, I saw a preseason poll. I shared this with Denver Gator. Florida's picked 11th in the SEC. Which yeah, it doesn't sound weird. It was, and I started looking at it. I'm like, God, is Florida really a bottom? Is Florida really a double-digit ranked team in the SEC? Is that the day and age that we live in now? Because I'm looking at the SEC. I'm like, I don't know. Think about Alabama. Georgia's up there. I'm talking about Ole Miss. Like, I think that's my sleeper team. Like, I'm looking at Ole Miss. They got a lot of talent on that team.
They do, yeah.
A lot of talent. Tennessee's brought in some really good recruits. You got LSU, who's got a roster that's absolutely loaded. But
who else is in? Is it Missouri? I can't remember
Missouri.
Yeah.
They beat Ohio State in that game that nobody played in. They're bringing back. Matter of fact, they got a receiver. I'm hearing may go top 10. By the way, Missouri has, like, as somebody who's been to the only college stadium I've ever been to is Missouri. They do this. It's awful. After every first down, one half goes MIZ, the other half goes ZOU. It's fucking awful. I had free beer and I wasn't happy. It was that fucking awful. It's just terrible. Denver. I was the only one who was surprised about this. And then I thought this was Peyton's third season with Denver. That's why I asked the question. I think
was it third year? I thought he was going to the second. I don't know. Maybe I'm tripping. I don't know.
Here's the thing, Perry. I'm not sure off the top of my head. I should know this, but I think that because he won the power struggle with Russell Wilson, I actually thought Denver might side with Russell Wilson and say, hey, look, we're giving you all this money. We're giving less money, even though it's a lot of money. We're giving lesser money. And if it doesn't work, we're going to keep Russell Wilson. We're going to try to build around you. But when it didn't, and I knew this was not going to work. I mean, this was obviously not going to work. But even if it doesn't work out, I could easily see Denver just saying, hey, Bo Nix isn't the answer. Shadir Sanders is the answer. And if Bo Nix does work, or even if Bo Nix looks mediocre, you can give him some time. And then next year they'll have an extra, $50 million to play with. So you have some tools here. I wanted to talk about this here because I thought this was a great comment. Funk had some great comments, and I apologize. I started ranting, and then I went dark for a second, so I missed some comments. But I like this one. Funk says, "Why poke the bear? Because not poking him hasn't worked, so might as well try something new, I guess." Here's the thing: the Raiders ruined everybody's Christmas last year. The Raiders were the Grinch. Nobody was happy on Christmas last year. Kids were crying. Even people in Vegas were pissed off. By the way, Chiefs Raiders Black Friday. I will be live for Black Friday. You don't want to miss that one. That's going to be a good one. And but unfortunately, the Chiefs play the Raiders. I think it's week 9, so week 13 is the second game, and I think that one's in Vegas.
How many Raiders games have there been where they haven't poked the bear though? Right, because so here's the thing: you have the stomping on midfield at Arrowhead that then got them crushed.
Remember when Gruden beat the Chiefs and then did the bus ride around?
Right? Yeah, the parade, the victory laps around Arrowhead that then got them crushed the next meeting. You have the I'm Here game from Mahomes because of Max Crosby, and the interesting thing about that is if you go back and watch Hard Knocks last year before the Dolphins played the Raiders, like Mike McDaniel was preparing Tua for Max Crosby because he will hit the quarterback after the play. No matter what, he's going to make some kind of contact, whether it's just like slapping you or, giving you a little shove or whatever. He wants to, if he's relatively close within like 10 feet of the quarterback, 15 feet, he's pushing, he's hitting, he's slapping, whatever, every single play because he's trying to play a mental game with the quarterback. Go find that episode of Hard Knocks. Mike McDaniel, made it clear to Tua. They did it in practice. He had a guy pretending to be Max Crosby to get under Tua's skin in the game, in practice to prepare for this. And that's what Max Crosby was doing in the I'm Here game. And Mahomes, you can find the mic'd up of it. Mahomes like, I know what you're doing, and I get it, but this is starting to get a little bit too much. And then Crosby does it again, and I forget what he said, but that's when Mahomes lost it. And you have the I'm Here, and then you have 20 unanswered points. So like there's all of these different games over the last 3-4 years where they have literally poked the bear, not literally, but figuratively, they've poked the bear. And so saying that, they haven't been poking the bear, so, you might as well see if poking the bear works. Nah, they've tried that. And every time they poked the bear, they got beat down.
I want to say one thing that all of us can agree on is that Max Crosby looked much better in Chiefs red than Raiders black. I mean, we all agree on that. Max Crosby Chiefs red would just be awesome.
Don't know why they did that.
I love Max Crosby. Yeah, but you're right. You're right. So Funk, like me and as in the NFC North, the Raiders have tried to do this before, and it's never worked. They've done this before a couple times. So, but I'm just gonna go GB here because I know I'm gonna butcher this name here, and this is a great question here. Is this a make or break for Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars? Keaton, I know it's AFC South here, but what do you think here? Is this a make or break for Trevor Lawrence and the Jags?
Yeah, I mean, I think they have to do something this year, in my opinion. I mean, you start off 6-2 last year, getting off to a hot start, and then they come crashing down, just kind of like what the Dolphins did last year. I mean, the thing is, like, I think Trevor Lawrence does have a good supporting cast on offense. I think Brian Thomas Jr., I think, he can be something special in this league, given his, I think he's probably one of the most explosive receivers coming out of the draft. I mean, you got, what's his name from the 49ers on defense? I can't remember.
Eric Armstead.
I think that's going to really help.
Big signing. Big loss for the Niners. That's
why I think the Niners are going to take a little step back this year, but that's another conversation. But just in general, I think the Jags defense should be better than they were last year. I think Trevor Lawrence, with the pieces they added this offseason, other than losing, I think it was Calvin Ridley they lost to the Titans, I believe. Yeah, I think it was Calvin Ridley. But he played for the Jags last year, right?
Yeah. He signed a huge contract with the Titans, and then they picked up Gabriel Davis from Buffalo, and then they drafted the kid out of LSU. I know Perry. That was Perry's number one Brian Thomas Jr. That was Perry's number one receiver. So, I mean, you can almost argue that. I don't know if I would do that, but you could argue on the offensive side of the ball that Trevor Lawrence has more weapons.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I'm saying. That's why I think, I think they have, at bare minimum, they have to make the play. They have to at least make the playoffs this year.
Oh, wow.
You have to. I mean, you have the talent. I mean, listen, honestly, there's no guarantee. I mean, you could probably make an argument. They could kind of compete for the division as well with Houston. I mean, they challenge Houston pretty well every year. You never know. I mean, I think, but I think it's between them and Houston in that division, in my opinion. I don't think the Colts are that they'll be competitive. But I don't think, I'm worried about Anthony Richardson. I'm worried about the supporting cast behind him, that quarterback. I'm not sold that, let's say if he does get hurt, Joe Flacco is going to be your quarterback. I don't think he's going to do I don't think he's going to be able to duplicate what he did last year with the Browns, with the Colts. I don't see it. So I think it's between Jacksonville and Houston. But yeah, I think at bare minimum, they need to make the playoffs in this season. They have to do better than 9-8, in my opinion, this year.
Okay, that's interesting. Keys, is this a make or break year for Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars?
Yeah, I'm going to answer this question. I'm going to add to it because not only Trevor Lawrence, but Doug Peterson, right? So I think it's a make or break for both of them. Like this is it, right? There's no, in my mind, there's no 2025 if you are not more successful. And that's hard to say, right? Because you've still had, you still have a team that is making the playoffs every year or close to making the playoffs every year. See, so, even though it's only a small, 2-3 years or so, you get that little small segment that's kind of like being a Steelers fan where you're making the playoffs or, you're still 8-9, 9-8, whatever, really close there. But, I love Doug Peterson, but I do think that with him, I think he's had enough years there, and counting 2024 season. And if things don't go better, like you have to make the playoffs and you got to go farther. You got to win a game or two. Because I think there are guys where, it's not pitting him up against this guy or that guy. It doesn't look as great for Doug, compared to some of these other coaches we've talked about. So for me, it's make or break for Trevor Lawrence and Doug. That doesn't mean that neither one of them would get another job if they were gone in Jacksonville. I think both would really quickly. I think Trevor Lawrence would probably end up a starter somewhere, it could be Denver, it could be the Jets if Rodgers is washed up or gets injured again. But, I think that the combination in Jacksonville will be exhausted if they don't win more this season.
Well, the Trevor Lawrence contract, I think, would guarantee that he stays there in Jacksonville. I could see Doug Peterson would be the one to go if one of them does go. I'm going to take a different stance here. I don't think it's a make or break season, but I would be really surprised if Jacksonville doesn't make the playoffs because they brought in a new defensive coordinator. I like what I'm hearing, what they're going to do defensively. I think Eric Armstead's a really nice addition. They just gave Tyson Campbell a ton of money, and I like Campbell as a prospect coming out of Georgia. I remember he ran that 4.25 at the combine. That was really impressive. I'm a Chiefs fan. I watched L'Jarius Sneed last year, and if L'Jarius Sneed's what you're basing a top tier corner off of, that they're two different caliber of players. I don't understand what Jacksonville's thinking, giving him all that money. I didn't see a guy I don't even know if he's really even a legit number one corner. So I mean, There's some weirdness going on. I think if everybody's healthy and they're 8-9, Peterson might get fired. But if there's injuries, if there's weird circumstances, then I could see Peterson getting there. But I'll be honest with you, I think Jacksonville's going to be a much better team than we saw at the last half of the season. I think the 7-3 start, that's kind of what I think Jacksonville will be this year. But it's a neat thing about talking football. We got three guys and three different opinions. And Denver Gator coming in strong, man. He comes in late, but he comes in strong, man. Crosby is rolling in the wrong generation of football late. Can you imagine if Crosby was part of that Raiders team with Lyle Alzado and Howie Long? That would have been so much fun. And Keys nails it right here. Crosby would look way better next to Chris Jones. That would just be phenomenal. That would be phenomenal. And by the way, Crosby across from Aiden Hutchinson would be a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh.
That's one thing though that like the Raiders did smart was like lock Crosby down to a big deal. Don't be surprised if they rework it if he has another year like he did last year. But by the way, Perry, you're 100% correct. George Karlaftis is going to have a great season this year. I saw something like PFF had him ranked as like the 55th best defensive end or some bullshit like that. No, this George Karlaftis is going to have a big year. Oh yeah, Max Crosby. It's going to be. I'm wondering how that defense is going to look with the Raiders. It's going to be a lot of fun. They need to win their division in a playoff game. I think they have to get. I honestly, if there's weird circumstances like injuries and they don't make the playoffs, they can bring everybody back. But I don't agree with that. But I do expect Jacksonville to make the playoffs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Gary's coming in here. He says he predicts Mike Vrabel will be the Jets' next head coach.
Wow.
I don't hate that. Usually, if you have a defensive-minded coach, you want to go with an offensive guy. But if Saleh doesn't get you there, Vrabel would make a lot of sense. It really would. It would make a lot of sense. Dan, you think with the recent foot problem, Chargers would trade Herbert to a team like the Dolphins, who's one quarterback away, or even to the Jets? Gary, that's a fantastic question. I have a great answer, but I'm going to let my guests answer this first. I'm going to start with Keys. Keys, if you're not aware, Justin Herbert, plantar fasciitis. He's going to miss off training camp, probably off preseason, but he should be ready to go week 1. Harbaugh coming in. Maybe at the end of this year, they want to move Justin Herbert. Is that a possibility?
No, absolutely not. You have the stingiest owner in the NFL, and let me put it this way: if you look at his contract, the potential out, the spot track list is 2029, and that's still 6 years, $245 million. So, this contract, I don't see it happening for a while. So, yeah, and that's my main justification for it. I think you have the quarterback talent plus the contract there, right? It's not like a Tua contract. It's not like a Daniel Jones contract. Like, the contract legit reflects, the ability, the talent, even, the ceiling that's left of Justin Herbert. So for me, I don't see it. Plus you have, they mentioned specifically the Dolphins. Is that right?
Yeah. Gary says, do you think the Dolphins would give up 5 first-rounders for Herbert?
You just have Tua's contract that he just signed as well. So like the money for neither side, works. If you were talking about contract extension for both to where the money works, that might be one thing. But I still don't think if the Chargers owner was going to approve a trade, it would have been before trading Herbert. It would have been trading him before you had to give him a contract to get a quarterback who's cheap, right? If he was going to do it, that would be why he would do it. You're definitely not trading either one of them after paying them, let alone both of them. It just wouldn't work for either team.
Keaton, same question, man. Is there any possibility? Keith says there's a possibility. No, I'm joking. I probably shouldn't joke. Any possibility the Chargers would entertain a Justin Herbert trade?
Nah. Let's be honest. Like, I mean, what's the point? Why would you trade? I mean, arguably your franchise quarterback. I mean, I think you have, like I said, the future. I think the future is looking bright for the Chargers. I think, Jim Harbaugh was the right choice for them. I think he's going to build this thing the right way. I think he's going to put pieces around Herbert to continue to be a successful quarterback in the league. I don't see why the Chargers would even entertain trading them unless you're getting someone like a Justin Herbert caliber player back, which out there, like I said, unless you're trained for Tua, but that's not going to happen.
No, the thing is, Gary, is that the Chargers and Herbert are stuck for the near future. I played around in one of my draft videos about I played around. I don't think I actually made the video, but I was playing around with a mega trade between the Patriots and the Chargers, where the Patriots would trade for Justin Herbert and give up something crazy, but the Chargers would in turn draft J.J. McCarthy. Herbert and the Chargers are going to stay. Believe it or not, I think Harbaugh and the Chargers are in, year one, obviously nothing's going to happen, but let's say 3 straight, 9-8 seasons. Herbert will still be there probably. I could see Harbaugh going, but the foot injury does bother me a little bit because you're learning a new offense. You have new receivers. I think if you're one of these people that are predicting the Chargers are going to be a 12-5 team or overthrow the Kansas City Chiefs, no, and this is a big part of it. I think it's a big deal for the Chargers this year. Herbert not being able to practice and staying on the sidelines. I think it's a huge deal this year, but he's going to be a Charger as much as I hate it for the near future. So, Perry says, I could see that. I think Salah's in a no-win area. He has to get to the Jets to an AFC championship game at minimum. He might not have to go to an AFC championship game, but he's definitely on the hot seat and he's in a bad situation. You got all that talent. You got to produce. And you got to. And Perry, I think you're right. The Jaguars are stuck with T-Law, but they're not stuck with Doug Peterson. And that 7-3 start and then not making the playoffs. That's, these two guys think that Doug Peterson has to make the playoffs or else he could be gone. I'm not sure about that. Hold on here. I think while we're at the Chargers, do you think the Chargers will be a bother to teams with a run or will be a bother to teams with a run-oriented offense? I think what you're saying is that the Chargers are going to switch to a run-oriented offense. Do you think it's going to bother them this year? I'm going to start. I think it's going to be a problem, and I do think it's going to be a problem mainly because your quarterback's not able to practice. And I think the offense is going to be an issue. Defensively, they were not a good team last year. I'll pass this off to my fellow AFC West fan and Keys. Keys, great question by GB here. While we're at the Chargers, do you think the Chargers would be a bother to teams with a or are you trying to say, do you think that the Chargers are going to be a problem for teams with the run-oriented offense? Not really sure.
I'm assuming they're asking if the Chargers having a run-oriented offense is going to be a problem for teams.
Yeah.
If that's the case, I'm gonna say maybe to an extent, right? Like that will win you some games. The Ravens have a great run game. The Dolphins, for the most part, have had some success with that. The 49ers, the Lions, even the Packers last year, they did fun things with their run game. I think where that becomes difficult is, one, you have to have the defense behind it, because that really determines how successful you can be there, especially in your division, when you're playing the Chiefs, because again, you can't have a run-oriented offense and try to then get in a shootout with Mahomes and the Chiefs and, expect to come out on top. So I think that's what really makes it difficult. But, that's not to say that, if you can do the types of things like the Lions and the Packers and the Ravens and 49ers and Dolphins, just to name almost a half a dozen teams, that you can't win a good number of games. But, at the same time, are the Chargers built for that right now? And can you expect that in year one? But yeah, I mean, if you lean into it properly, it does make things, a little bit more difficult. Like for the Chiefs, Spagnuolo seems to not really care about run defense until the playoffs, right? He might, if there's a game or two that, they have where they feel it's kind of a must-win game, that might be one thing, but he just hasn't really cared. Right, that's why you get a guy like Mike Pennell, who I think is a hell of a defensive lineman, who is basically a practice squad stash every year, and they just bring him up for 2 or 3 games against great running teams, and when they have to stifle the run, they can do it. They've shown it against those great running teams that I named, like the Dolphins, the 49ers multiple times now, the Ravens multiple times now in the playoffs. So. I mean, it's a yes and no answer, and it really just kind of depends on the team they're playing against and how good their defense can be, which they've had the pieces before in the past. It's just staying healthy and having the right defensive coordinator.
No, you're completely correct, and I'm glad you qualified that for us being a bother to teams, because I drew a complete blank because they brought in 2 of the Ravens running backs. They brought in Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins, a former Ohio State player. I watched him at Ohio State. I loved him at Ohio State. Keaton, with a run-powered offense. How scary is this to the rest of the AFC? You're a Patriots fan. Are you looking at the Chargers having a run-based offense, and now you're like, okay, I'm scared?
I wouldn't necessarily say I wouldn't necessarily say scared from the rest of the league, but it's definitely something new because this is definitely something they weren't really doing last year. Like I said, Jim Harbaugh is incorporating what he wants for this offense and what he wants, to be identified as a team. So, like I said, we don't really know what the Chargers are going to like in terms of game plan. We don't know what they're going to bring to the field against other teams. So it's going to be surprising. I'm going to be looking forward to seeing what how they operate on the field, both offensively and defensively in 2024.
I will say this, J.K. Dobbins, if you watch him at Ohio State, like I know Keaton did, he was one of my favorite players. But I think it's 50 games, he's only played in 23 because the guy can't stay healthy. But when he plays, he's one of the best running backs in football. So he's just one of these guys cannot stay healthy.
Yeah.
If Dobbins stays healthy, he's a difference maker. But I think last year he was only healthy. I think it was 2 games. And then it's just been a constant thing. He's in 2 games, 4 games, but when he plays, he's awesome. Edwards and Dobbins are healthy. Who knows? Edwards, I forget when he got injured. I want to say week 8, week 10. And then Dobbins never is able to stay healthy. But if these guys are healthy, you just don't know. You can't bank on it, though. So it's going to be fun. We're in a new era, but I will say this: Herbert's injury is a big big problem. Big problem. I love this comment by Denver Gator. Trading Herbert for J.J. McCarthy is like smelling the spoiled milk in the jug, putting it back in the fridge. I think it was awesome. Gary has this is a great comment. By the way, Gary, check out my NFC East video because I do talk about that specific thing in the video. So please check out my video if you haven't yet. Could Vrabel also be a choice for the Cowboys if McCarthy is let go? I'll start with Keaton here, man. I kind of like this, man. Are you on board? Could Vrabel be a guy if McCarthy's gone?
I see. That's a great question, but I wouldn't say Vrabel. I would replace that with Bell. I think Belichick would be better fit in Dallas if McCarthy were gone. Damn question. Wow. I think he will. I think Belichick, they even said before that I think he's going to be coaching at this time next year once he finds like whatever team is interested in him. But I think the Cowboys, if McCarthy doesn't get it done this year, or if he doesn't, if he gets bounced in the first round again like he did last year, I could definitely see. I mean, Vrabel is a good choice too. Like I said, I think he can bring more to the table than what Mike McCarthy's ever done in Dallas. But Belichick would definitely be a great fit in Dallas as well. I mean, Vrabel is another candidate too, but I would probably lean more towards Belichick to Dallas than I would with Vrabel.
Keys, what's your opinion here? I think we've talked about this. I mean, McCarthy's definitely on the hot seat. Let's say he's gone. Is Vrabel a good fit in Dallas? Because me and you both think very highly of him.
Yeah, I would have already gotten rid of McCarthy because I don't think highly of him. But, so the problem isn't, Keaton's right, like on paper, Belichick, I mean, he fits so many of these playoff teams, right? The Eagles, the Cowboys, most of these playoff teams could upgrade their head coach with Belichick. Well, with Vrabel too. But with Belichick, the problem is that, in reality, Belichick's not going to Dallas because Jerry Jones and Bill Belichick both would want so much power and control that it would never work. I will never say never, but the likelihood of that working is so slim, right? Stephen Jones is trying to get some power from daddy, right? You know what I mean? Like Bill Belichick's not coming in and getting all this power. And that was supposedly, part of the reason that other teams went, the Falcons and whatever went a different direction this year in their hires was because they didn't want to offer, Belichick control. So unless he's, willing to completely give up the player personnel side of things, and given that his father wrote a book on scouting methods, I'm tending to guess he's probably not willing to, I don't see that fit. Now, who do you bring in? Well, it's interesting. We're talking about two defensive coaches, and our string of offensive coaches, is how many deep now? It was McCarthy, or it's McCarthy. That it was Jason Garrett. Who was before Jason Garrett?
It was. I was trying to think before. I mean, Jason Garrett's been there for a long time. There was somebody after Parcells, and it wasn't. Well,
you had Jimmy Johnson at some point.
I don't think it was Parcells to Jason Garrett, but there was somebody in there. Was it Chan Gailey? Am I going? It can't be that far back. Before Jason Garrett, I'm just drawing a blind.
Yeah, I can look it up, but
really terrible head coach. I remember on Hard Knocks was singing karaoke, and I was like, yeah, you're going to have a bad season. And I forget who it was Jason Garrett took over, but you're right. I mean, it's been back to back. Jason Garrett was there for a long time.
I think the problem is, right?
Wade Phillips was, yeah.
Wade.
Yeah, okay.
Wow.
I think the problem is that you've still shown in Dallas that, you can have offensive head coaches and you can go out and get a defensive coordinator. Like, when's the when have they really had a problem bringing in defensive coordinators and having pretty good defenses in Dallas? Like, that hasn't necessarily been the issue, but at the same time, the offense hasn't necessarily been the issue either. So, where's the disconnect? Is it that Jerry Jones is, for all intents and purposes, the one collecting the talent, and some of that talent gets injured and some of that talent's not that great? Or, is it Dak? Or, ultimately, what's the issue is my thing. But I would have gotten rid of McCarthy. I haven't been a big believer in McCarthy. So, I think if Sean Payton hadn't went to the Broncos, this would be probably an easy answer, right?
Let me ask you this though: would Vrabel work in Dallas? I mean, he was a guy. Remember things soured because the Titans traded AJ Brown, and
Right.
Vrabel was adamant about that. So I have a hard time seeing Vrabel and Jerry Jones working together. I mean, this is a great comment right here. There's a universe where Jerry Jones and Bill Belichick are in the same team. Dallas would have a Civil War. I think it would be so much fun to watch Belichick go to Dallas, but it'll be interesting. I think Vrabel would be a great fit. I just don't see Jerry Jones and Vrabel, getting along out there. Denver Gator, I don't. Macy Gray, I don't get the reference, man. Because I'm sitting there, I'm just drawing a complete blank on who Macy Gray is.
Singer.
Is it the? Oh, are you not? Oh God! Well, I'm going to tell you this, Denver Gator. I just watched the first quarter, and I don't want to be the hot take guy, but I think Justin Fields is going to be the day one starter. I saw enough out of Justin Fields like that. That's the starter. And Keys is right here. The play action pass would really help out Herbert quite a bit. But again, nobody wants to see the Chargers have a really good running game and a really good Justin Herbert. That would be terrible for everybody. But I agree with this because Keys puts in Quentin Johnston, my number one wide receiver. He has to take a huge step forward. You lost Mike Williams, lost Keenan Allen, and Austin Eckler. It's a lot to replace. Dan, what do you think of the Giants O-line coaching? Could he make the Giants better at drafting offensive linemen? Yeah, the Evan Neal draft pick, a big swing and a miss, really, really hurt their team. And I know you're a Giants fan. I think I've like 5 or 10 minutes left of the final episode of Hard Knocks. I'm drawing a blank on who the Dallas Cowboys coach was who was singing karaoke. That was easily the team. That was like the worst Hard Knocks team ever to watch. Like I knew after watching him sing karaoke, and I can't think of the guy's name. Like I was like, Dallas is guaranteed to have a bad year. I can't remember his name, but anyway, I watched Hard Knocks and I can't put my finger on exactly what it is, but you can spot a bad team and a bad organization. And Dallas, I don't see the Giants. I think the Giants are really just going to clean house. I really do. Like I after watching Hard Knocks, it just solidified that that's not a good team. I can't put my finger on it and say that's everything about watching Hard Knocks indicates that Giants are not going to have a good year. So I think whoever their offensive line coach is, it's not going to matter because I think it's going to be different in 2025. I really do. And by the way, check out my NFC East preview video, Gary, because I talk about that in the video. And I also talk about who would be a great head coach for the Dallas Cowboys. So, but yeah, it would be a lot of fun. And it is interesting that Jim got 2 of his brother's former running backs. And my thought process was that when they picked up Derrick Henry, they said, hey, these guys are good guys, but Derrick Henry's great. So that's kind of my thought process. What about the defensive coordinator for Dallas becomes their head coach? It's in the link below, but that's exactly what I said. That's my prediction. I really do. I 100% believe that that's what's going to happen. And I'm just having a brain freeze because we've been on for 3 hours. My brain's not working right. I'm drawing a blank on who the Cowboys defensive coordinator is, even though I have a big man crush on him. Coached up in Minnesota. Started his career as defensive coordinator.
It's in the chat, Dan.
Okay, it is in there. It is in there. It is in there.
Yeah, Perry had a comment.
Perry had
talking about Zimmer taking over.
Mike Zimmer, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. I had a brain freeze, but yeah, Mike Zimmer. I think he'll be a Dallas head coach in 2025. That's the whole reason he was brought in. But
interesting, yeah.
Tomlin, Dallas, AI. That would be a lot of fame. That would be a lot of fun. Mike Tomlin in Dallas. That would be a lot of fun.
Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, I 100% believe that's what's going to happen. I think Dable's fired at the season's end, and
it'll happen. It'll happen.
Yeah, I predict that
it'll happen. I don't think the Giants are going to have a good year as well. I think they're going to have the worst. I think they're going to be the worst team in football.
Yeah, Quentin Johnston needs to be a good. I mean, he really needs to have a big year, and him not getting valuable practice time with Justin Herbert, I think, is going to be a big deal. Guys, I'm going to wrap this up here. We're at a little over 3 hours. If you had some questions that I missed, I apologize. Keaton's got 5 dates lined up, so he's excited. He's ready to go, and he's on the Eastern time zone. I'm keeping Keys late. It's 8:00 here for me, so I have an early night. But that's positives about Vegas. The negatives are it is 1,000 degrees outside. It is brutal hot. It's even triple digits at night, which is weird. It's such a weird thing. I was talking to somebody last night. He goes, "You don't get used to it." Because I was like, am I going to get used to it being 105 at midnight? But no, you don't get used to it.
Hey, gotta make it to the fall, make it to the winter.
Yeah. And Perry, it's Easton Stick. He played last year, and he's not bad. But he's not a veteran guy, and that's something I would have liked to see the Chargers do. But yeah. But listen, before we leave, before we end the show here, I want to get some final thoughts, questions. Do you have any final thoughts or questions for my guests? Please fire them out now. Keaton's got 5 dates waiting for him. Keys has a wild weekend going for him. So, but before we leave, final thoughts, final questions. I'll start off with Keys. Keys, man, thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's always a blast with you guys. I'll throw this out here. If McCarthy and Dable are both gone, and I think there's a decent chance of it, and you get Zimmer as your head coach in Dallas, Dable's offensive coordinator.
That would make a lot of sense. And they would pay Dable, by the way, a ton of money. And I think Dable, when he flames out, and I think he will realize, hey, I'm a much better offensive coordinator than I am a head coach. And he could potentially make $7 or $8 million a year as Dallas's offensive coordinator. I know it sounds like a crazy number I'm saying. It's realistic, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I can see it too.
I mean, or he could come back to Kansas City, get some rings and stuff. But
I mean, everybody wants to see the Chiefs three-peat. Everybody wants to see that.
He probably will after all that nonsense with the Raiders.
I have all the things that can be positive for Kansas City. I think that's the number one. Like why would you do that? I can't wait for Chiefs.
And they all saw it, right? Because Mahomes' trainer sees everything, right? But even players, I think it was Justin Reed retweeted that and was like, this game just got a whole lot more exciting or something like that.
I can't wait. I wish it was the start of the season, but in less than a month, I will be live for Chiefs Ravens, and I'm really, really, really looking forward to that.
Maybe rest the game.
Oh, that's going to be a lot of fun. I hope both of you guys are able to join the live stream when I do play-by-play for Chiefs Ravens here September 5th. It's going to be a good one. Keaton, I know you got 5 dates lined up, man. I know it's wild night here, party time weekend. I get it. Man, final thoughts, comments, anything that you have to end the show?
I mean, like I said, it's always a blast being on your show and just talking some football. You know what I'm saying? Ready to get, ready to get things going for sure. And like I said, I have a prediction video coming out here. It'll definitely be out either this week or next. But I'm doing some last minute stuff with this, so stay tuned with that. Obviously, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you like, share, subscribe, and share it to your friends and help build this channel up. So I'm excited for the football season for sure.
I am too. Football season not come soon enough. I'm super excited about preseason. I'm going to be binge watching a lot of preseason football tonight, and of course, I can't wait for Chiefs Jaguars tomorrow. Final question of the night. This is a good one. Keys, I'm going to start with you. Will Dak still be with Dallas next season?
Hey, I just said that, so yeah, I think this is a hard one. At the end of the day, it comes down to what Jerry, where Jerry's heart is at. And as I understand it, he loves Dak. Is that not right?
Yeah.
So I think as long as that's the case, Dak's getting paid. Doesn't mean he should be. And I'm not saying, here's the thing, like the money he's going to make, because I'm not saying Dak is a bad quarterback, right? He might be somewhere in that top 4 to 8 or 9 or 10 quarterbacks. But, I haven't seen anything close to that it factor that like Mahomes has and, maybe a few other quarterbacks have. But, like I said there, coming after, Daniel Jones getting $45 million a year or whatever it was, Tua getting paid, some of these guys, who aren't in that top 5 to 10 getting paid, like Dak's going to get some money, and his cap hit for like this year is like 40 or 50 million.
I think
with a void year,
59 and a half.
It's crazy.
It's something crazy. He's a free agent next year unless he's so.
I mean, if Jerry wants him, he's getting paid, but he's going to get really paid. Coming off of that kind of a cap hit. But, like to me, it doesn't matter. I wouldn't do it for that team. But, if Jerry loves him, Jerry's probably going to. So,
Mm-hmm.
Keaton, will Dak be with the Cowboys next year?
That's a good question. So
it's a great question. It's a great question. Perry's phenomenal here.
Yeah, great question, Perry. I like that. But like I said, it's going to depend on, because if you pay Dak all that money, because Michael Parsons is also looking for his deal as well.
CD Lamb hasn't signed yet.
If you pay Dak all that money, where's the rest of that money going to go? Are you going to be able to bring back guys like Michael Parsons or a CD Lamb or whatever? Like, so like, it just really depends on like what Jerry Jones wants. Who does he value more? Does he value Dak Prescott? Which, I mean, we've seen over the last few years, he hasn't, great regular season quarterback, but chokes in the postseason. Michael Parsons, I think he's one of the best players in the league at his position. I mean, you could probably make an argument Myles Garrett, is up there with him too. But I just think it depends on what Jerry Jones wants. In my opinion, like I said, I agree with Keys. I don't think it wouldn't be smart. I wouldn't pay Dak all the money. I think Dak will be somewhere else next year. Because, like, in my opinion, it just depends on how far Dallas goes. If he shows promise, if they can say they get to the conference championship game or something like that, maybe you bring him back. And if he shows promise there, but like we've seen time and time again, Dallas just hasn't gotten it done. Dak hasn't gotten it done. I mean, just look at last year, great example. He looked clueless in that Green Bay game, in that wild card game. So, in my opinion, I wouldn't give him all that money, but it wouldn't surprise me if Jerry Jones does, because it's Jerry Jones and, he's a businessman, so that's what he does.
Yeah, Perry, I think there's a lot of factors. I predict Zimmer's going to take over as the head coach in 2025. And I think Dak will get signed, and I think that what's going to happen is I think they'll let Parsons walk. And the reason why I say that is you drafted Marshawn Cleveland in the second round this year. I think part of that's in preparation because he's been public, he's been vocal, and I do think Dak will sign, and I think that's just kind of been the way the Cowboys did things. Remember, they kept on signing Tony Romo to big-time contracts, and that's kind of I see the same trend continuing. Should he be? I don't know. I think if Dallas fell apart and was like 7-10, then little fun fact, Mike Zimmer was Deion Sanders' defensive coordinator at Jackson State. Just a little fun fact there. I'm just going to throw that out there. So if there was any possibility Shadir Sanders could take over as quarterback in Dallas, which I don't think it will happen, but if Dallas fell apart and won like 7 games and they could package a deal to trade up the first pick in the draft and draft Shadir Sanders, sure. Ultimately, I think Dallas is going to be a 10-plus win team. I think they'll sign Dak. And I think Michael Parsons will probably be on another team. Final question. This is a good one. Is the NFL ready for an overseas team? And
Overseas team.
Keith's kind of answered this. Keaton, you have an answer.
To the overseas.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I don't know. That's a good question. I have no idea. He definitely hit me there with that question.
All right. Keys. This is a great answer, by the way. This is a great answer. So are you saying with this answer, by the way, that seems to be tied to the continuation of aviation technology when the overseas flights times get quicker, it'll definitely be. Is the NFL ready now?
No, I don't think so. I think you've already had complaints from players about how long the flights are. So it really comes down to like those higher speed planes and the reliability of them, especially, flying overseas. So I think once that, and I think there was a great article out maybe earlier this year. I think they're still about 4 or 5 years away from that. But I think the groundwork is there enough, right? They're playing these games in these markets for a reason. Like they want to build these markets up, but it really comes down to the flight time, because you can do these as a one-off. But if you put a team in Germany or London, for instance, which might be, the 2 biggest European markets so far, you have 8 teams coming over to play them, and that might work for each of those teams. But then that team in London or Germany has to come to America 8 times, and that's where it's different. There's a difference between 8 teams going to London or Germany or, Brazil or wherever, once a year. But it's the other way around, that team having to come to America and play 8 or 9 games. I think where there's the bigger issue. But, the players are kind of babies. They don't want to be, on a 9-hour flight or whatever it is, depending on where you're playing. So once those jets are faster and more reliably faster, I think that's where you will have you will have the completion of the groundwork for NFL football, at least in Europe. Mexico City might be a tad bit different, but I don't think it's a whole lot different, with that. So, I went to Argentina once. That was an 18-hour flight. I'm sure they fly a little bit faster than what we flew, but, that was terrible.
In the 90s, I flew to Germany, and it was like a 12-hour flight or something, and it was just crazy. But GB, a long time ago, there was a plan, and I wish I had the information so I could say this exactly. But what I heard was that when the NFL expands, instead of just doing 2 teams, they want to do 4. And what they want to do is have 3 international cities. And the rumors are Toronto, Mexico City, San Antonio, and then they either want to do London and Frankfurt. Eventually, they want to put a team in London and Frankfurt. I don't know when that's going to happen, but that's kind of what we're looking at in the future is teams internationally. But I'm not sure when it'll happen because the expansion from 32 to 36, it's going to be a tough one. But that's what the NFL is wanting to do. I don't think it's going to happen until 2030 at least, but the NFL will expand, definitely. And that's where we're going to end the show tonight. By the way, check out Keaton Talk Sports. He's going to have a bunch of stuff coming out. And Keys, please come out with some more stuff here. Hopefully you and Gooch can together put out some more stuff. Don't forget, I will be live September 5th. Chiefs Ravens here, and starting September 9th, Afternoon Delight, where I'll be live Monday through Friday, 1 to 4 Vegas time, 4 to 7 Eastern Standard Time. Have a good night. Hopefully everybody will come back next Friday.